boy's name is Cheoldu. He was a barbarian child, but life was cruel. He lost his parents in war and was eventually reborn in another world. This place was savage, filled with goblins and ogres. Years later, he transformed into a giant barbarian. Cheoldu uses no magic, only pure brutality. Now, he is a muscular genius who will crush every monster with his brute strength. A lone barbarian faces his entire tribe, who seem to be against him. He then raises his great hammer in the air, preparing for combat. The warrior charges forward and lands a powerful blow on one of his opponents. In the midst of battle, he roars as he continues to fight with his weapon. The scene shifts to a cornered group as a man shouts the name Evelyn. He yells for them to prepare the spell, saying he'll buy them some time. The woman then takes the boy's hand and tells him everything is all right. The story flashes back to the past, focusing on a child watching the fight. His father was fighting his own tribe to protect his family and honor. The other warriors attack him, screaming for him to just die already. Even wounded and bleeding, the boy's father keeps resisting the brutal assault. Seeing this, the boy tries to reach his father and desperately cries out for him, but the barbarian warns that they have no chance and counterattacks the traitors. He continues to fight the crowd alone, getting pierced by several spears. Meanwhile, the woman hugs the boy and begins to recite an incantation. Suddenly, the spell activates and throws the boy away from the edge. She then says that anywhere in the land of stars will be better than here. The mother smiles and asks her son, Aiden, to take good care of himself, but the boy begs them not to do it, saying he's scared. His father notices the situation and desperately screams his son's name. Aiden looks back, not understanding what's happening as he's taken away. Even while being attacked, his father shouts for the boy to be much stronger. He continues, telling Aiden to be strong so that no one can ever hurt him again. The warrior then completes the sentence, telling his son to survive everything. Crying, the boy promises his father he will do as he asked. The barbarian then faces the final blow, meeting death with great pride. The scene then shifts to the present day, in a random alley in the city. A group of bullies surrounds a student, asking why he looks so rich. Their leader then demands that Jintae Kim hand over his backpack and watch. The student asks them to stop, warning that things could get serious. Jintae explains that's not it, but that his friend is already on the way. The bully grabs his head, asking if his friend is some kind of monster. At that moment, the aggressor is thrown with great force against the brick wall. The others get scared and scream, not understanding what just happened to the wall. A mysterious voice then asks if Jintae is there, startling one of the boys. From inside the hole in the wall, a young man emerges from the rubble. Cheoldu Kang glares at the group and says they seem to have no manners. Their leader stammers, asking who he is and how he broke the wall, but the newcomer simply ignores the question and grabs the bully by the collar. He answers firmly that he's Jintae's friend, holding him up high. Then, he hurls the boy away with a single, swift motion. As they're leaving, Jintae comments that it was incredible how he broke the wall. He then continues and asks his friend directly if he's even human. Cheoldu Kang gets annoyed and yells back that of course he's human. Jintae says he seems different, but Kang hurries him along so they can leave. The scene changes to his house, where a stack of bowls shows what he had for dinner. His grandfather watches him and asks with concern why he's eating so little. Kang replies that he's lost his appetite, but his grandfather says he's happy just watching him. He laments that his grandfather always says the same thing about him and food. In a quick flashback, the same man is seen taking Kang in when he was a child. Back in the present, his grandfather says that Director Park called earlier. Kang replies that he's not going to be an athlete, leaving his grandfather speechless. The man asks why he would throw away a talent that wins him so many awards. He explains that competing in sports would basically be a violation of fair play. Kang concludes by saying that barbarians can only become one thing: true warriors. He doesn't want sports, but a real fight against a worthy rival. But the big problem he faces is a very important detail about the planet. He sits on the porch thinking that Earth is far too peaceful for him. Inside, his grandfather is watching television and asks what all that noise is about. The news on TV is reporting on an unidentified disaster in the city of Cheongju. Kang walks over and asks what happened, while his grandfather explains the incident. His grandfather mentions they're talking about monsters, and Kang repeats the word, intrigued. The report continues, showing newly released footage of something in the disaster area. The image reveals an unidentified creature, and the news urges everyone to be cautious. He turns away upon seeing the creature on television. His grandfather asks him to sit down, saying he's making him a little nervous. The old man doesn't understand his grandson's reaction to the whole situation. Kang then turns around and tells his grandfather he'll be back soon. The scene changes to a road sign, indicating the way to the city of Cheongju. Jintae complains about driving, saying it's his first time going long distance. Kang tells him to get a license, but his friend thanks him, saying he saved his life. During the drive, Kang remembers seeing that monster when he was a child. The car brakes sharply as it approaches a barrier on the road ahead. When he arrives, he sees a crowd and realizes something is really happening there. Jintae comments that they weren't kidding about the disaster, seeing the soldiers on site. One of the armed men approaches Kang and compliments his physique. He then asks who Kang works for, introducing himself as a member of Nuseong Development. The man hands him a card and invites him to join their group. Kang looks at the card and asks if their group is a guild of true warriors. The recruiter laughs at his question and puts an arm around him, finding the situation funny. He explains that they are colonizing a planet, considering themselves more than just warriors. Kang keeps looking at the card while the man insists that he join them, but he rips up the card, saying he's a warrior, not a simple worker. The man becomes furious, yelling about how he dares to say no to Nuseong. Kang then clenches his fist and asks if he's looking down on a warrior's honor. Suddenly, a strange event begins to unfold at the entrance of the tunnel ahead. A formless mass starts to pour out from inside the tunnel, spreading across the ground. One of the leaders shouts for everyone to get ready, warning that something is coming. The mass moves forward and engulfs several people, while Jintae desperately screams for Cheoldu. A sphere appears in the sky, and a system window announces the start of the examination. Kang looks up and questions the word that appeared on the system panel. The message warns that the end of the world is coming, but the planet Nova offers salvation. Suddenly, a wave of energy descends from the sphere, swallowing everyone on sight. The system instructs them to flee to Nova as the portal sucks everyone in. A pillar of light descends into a clearing in an unknown forest. The scene shifts to a tree branch, and a voice asks what happened. Jintae screams in despair, putting his hands on his head and asking where they are. He then starts punching Kang, blaming him and asking where his car is. A system window appears in front of him, interrupting his panic attack. The mission states they need to obtain a goblin coin to advance their class. Kang ignores the screen and tells Jintae to look ahead of them. They are surrounded by a group of green creatures looking down at them from above. The monsters stare at the two of them, and Jintae asks, frightened, what they are. He says that nothing makes sense and asks if they have to fight those things. Without a second thought, Kang charges forward alone toward the creatures ahead. Kang advances without hesitation, running directly toward the group of monsters there. He then bares his teeth, preparing for the first strike against the creatures. Kang delivers a full-force blow to the first goblin's chest. The creature is thrown backward, carving a long trail through the tall grass. He dodges the other goblins' attacks as they try to surround him with clubs. He then clenches his fists and prepares to counterattack the surrounding monsters. With a swift movement, he strikes the side of one of the goblins with his hand. He continues fighting the monsters, yelling for the end of the world to come. He lands a powerful blow right in the face of another one of those creatures. Then he continues to fight, taking down several goblins with his precise strikes. Jintae watches in shock, unable to believe he defeated them so easily. The last creature falls to the ground, completely defeated by his friend's attack. Suddenly, the goblin's body starts to dissolve right in front of him. A coin appears where the monster was, and he wonders what it is. He picks up the item and recognizes it as the goblin coin the screen mentioned. He then holds the shiny coin in his hands, observing the item with curiosity. The screen appears, notifying him that he has passed and must go to the Nova portal. Jintae approaches and asks what it means to cross a portal to another place. Kang turns to him, also questioning the existence of that portal in the forest. Above them, a large dark portal appears floating in the middle of the sky. Elsewhere, Jintae appears, all bruised, and curses Cheoldu for his actions. He screams, asking why he was thrown into the middle of so many goblins to die. Kang explains that the coins aren't transferable, so he needs to get his own. Jintae keeps complaining as a goblin gets up behind him with a club. The monster charges forward, and Jintae screams, saying he thought they were all dead already. Kang then stomps on the goblin's head, saying that fighting is the best way to grow. He promises to help and tells Jintae not to worry, because he won't die. Jintae thanks him, mentioning that at least he managed to finish the mission he received earlier. The scene changes, showing a pair of binoculars emerging from a nearby bush. One of the observers points to a bag, saying the goblins took it from them. The two men then decide it's time to go after the creatures there. Back with Kang, he finds the bag and sees there's food inside. As he prepares to eat, the barrel of a gun is pointed at him. Two soldiers appear, shouting for the filthy goblin to die once and for all. The soldier aiming at him is confused, not understanding the situation he's found. His partner shouts that they're human, while Jintae raises his hands in surrender. Later, they're cooking together, and the soldier apologizes for the earlier confusion. He asks if they're alone, and Jintae explains they arrived knowing nothing. Jintae asks the soldier if the army is also involved in this so-called final exam. He confirms the government is preparing for the end, talking about the planet Nova. The soldier continues, explaining that several companies are already competing for the new colonization. Kang then asks if there are many monsters on Nova, like the ones they've seen. He hears the soldier say that this place is just a test, because Nova is worse. Then the soldier returns the bag, and Jintae thanks him profusely for the help. Kang reflects on the warning that the new planet will be even more difficult. He smirks and tells himself he'll need to hunt a lot more. The scene then shifts to the forest sky, now starry and at night. Jintae complains about hunting, but Kang says they can't just stand around. The two continue to move carefully through the tall, dark woods. Kang explains to his friend that they need to become much stronger now. He spots a tower with a different kind of goblin on top, with others surrounding it. The creature seems to be performing a ritual, and Kang wonders what it is. Jintae comments that the monster is different, and Kang says he heard something. Jintae warns that it looks too dangerous, but Kang already charges into the attack. He rushes forward with a frying pan, shouting that the more dangerous it is, the better. The goblin guards turn as they notice his approach. Not understanding what's happening, Kang attacks the monsters, yelling for the pests to get out of his way. Meanwhile, the goblin at the top of the tower just watches the fight below. Kang then starts to climb the structure, leaping towards the goblin chief. He shouts for the goblin to wait, warning that he's coming to get him now. The creature just growls in response, facing its new and unexpected opponent. Suddenly, the sky behind the monster begins to fill with lightning. Kang realizes the goblin can use magic as a bolt of lightning strikes down from the tower. He looks up, surprised by the magical power of his enemy. The lightning then strikes Kang dead on, in the middle of the large tower's structure. Seeing this, Jin-tae screams his friend's name in desperation, completely terrified. The goblin chief just laughs, observing the result of its magical attack. It then looks down and begins to speak to its fallen opponent. Kang gets up, completely burned, saying that this is all very exciting for him. The goblin becomes enraged and prepares another attack with its staff, gathering more power. It then fires more lightning bolts at Kang, who continues to climb the large tower. But Kang endures the damage and tells the monster to keep attacking without stopping. An image of his mother appears, and he shouts that he's the son of a sorceress. He stomps hard on the structure, releasing an energy that completely envelops him. Then he faces the goblin and warns that whatever doesn't kill him right away. He yells that the enemy's attack only makes him even stronger. The accumulated energy explodes outward, destroying the tower's wooden structure. The entire tower collapses from the impact of the power released by the blow. Kang then falls amidst the wreckage, lying on the ground after the battle. He says that was a close call, thankful for the magical resistance inherited from his mother. Suddenly, some items fall from the sky, but they don't look like coins. An orb of magic appears, and he wonders if he'll gain Sorcerer's power. The sphere then flies and goes straight into his chest, leaving him very surprised. The orb's energy is absorbed, completely enveloping his body in pure power. He looks at his own hands, saying he feels himself getting stronger than before. Then he clenches his fist and wonders if this is the power of the orb. Jin-tae runs towards him, shouting his name amidst the debris. He asks how Kang survived, and if he's even a real human being. Kang just stares at him, and his friend asks with concern if he's badly hurt, but he turns with a smile, warning that they need to do some serious hunting. Jin-tae panics, begging him to stop, as Kang talks about hunting more goblins. The boy then screams for him to stop, falling backward at the absurd idea. The scene changes to the next day, with their camp set up in the forest. Jin-tae wakes up and adjusts his glasses, looking at his friend with some suspicion. Kang calls out to him, revealing he spent all night hunting and collecting more orbs. He shows the 3 orbs, saying he can't wait to test their power. Kang celebrates getting stronger, while Jin-tae calls him a maniac. A message appears, warning that boss monsters are now appearing in the arena. The system advises them to run, as the bosses are too strong for novices. Jin-tae calls for him to go to the portal, but Kang remains completely still. He says this is very exciting, while Jin-tae calls him a psychopath. Suddenly, a giant foot stomps down hard on the ground right near them. A junior ogre appears, roaring in front of the soldiers who aim their weapons. The leader orders them to aim for the monster's hand, and they begin to fire. But the creature roars again as the bullets have no effect on it. The monster then raises its club and attacks the soldiers with all its might. One of the soldiers screams in desperation upon seeing the blow coming his way. At the last second, Kang appears and manages to block the large ogre's attack. The soldier looks up, trying to understand who just saved him from the attack. He faces the ogre, finally excited to fight someone bigger than him. Then he warns everyone to get out of his way as quickly as possible. Kang charges forward and shouts that he's going to take that ogre down no matter what. He charges forward with a war cry, readying his fist for a massive attack. He then lands a powerful blow right in the middle of the giant monster's belly. Kang is shocked to see his punch had seemingly no effect at all. The ogre remains still, and the blow didn't even seem to tickle it. With a roar, the creature counters with a devastating strike aimed at him. He's thrown far back, carving a trail of destruction into the ground from the impact. Jin-tae shouts that the monster is stronger. The ogre then approaches the fallen Kang, ready to end the fight for good. Even injured, he admits to himself that his opponent is much stronger. The monster raises its club to deliver the final blow against its target on the ground, but Kang manages to dodge at the last second, narrowly escaping the attack. He then strikes the ogre's chin, which screams from the unexpected blow. The creature tries to hit him with several blows, but he dodges them all. Kang realizes the ogre's attacks are simple, so he seizes an opening and slides under his opponent's arm. He then grabs the monster's arm and says he's going to use its own strength. With a yell, he prepares to use the enemy's weight to his advantage. Kang lifts the ogre and uses the momentum to slam it hard onto the ground. The monster lands head first, cracking the ground from the impact. He leaps onto the fallen ogre and says it can thank him later for this. Kang shouts that he's going to fix its teeth and prepares a powerful mid-air strike. He then comes down with full force, hitting the ogre's face with a devastating blow. The monster is stunned and bleeding from the attack, but he keeps punching, yelling that the fight isn't over. He unleashes a barrage of punches, determined to finish the monster once and for all. The soldiers watch in shock, unable to believe he defeated the ogre with his bare hands. Kang raises his arms and celebrates, shouting that he defeated a stronger monster. He challenges any other boss to fight him now. The ogre's body then begins to dissolve into particles, slowly vanishing. In its place, a new item appears, surprising him with the reward. A blue orb materializes where the great monster had fallen. He picks up the item and wonders what power this new orb might grant. But as he inspects it, he's surprised by what he just received. The soldiers thank him, but he says he just wanted to fight the monster. One of them advises him to buy as much as he can at the warehouse before leaving. The scene shifts to the warehouse, where a goblin vendor is serving customers. The goblin looks at him and invites him to check out his products. Jintai is surprised by the talking goblin, and the soldiers bid them farewell. He then asks his friend what they'll do with all the coins they've gathered. Kang replies that the solution is simple. He shows a bag full of swords and other weapons. Then he reveals another bag with scythes and different types of melee weapons. He yells that they're going to spend it all to gear up for the next challenge. A screen announces they have met the requirements to enter Nova. The two then walk towards the portal, carrying their new combat gear. Jintai asks his friend if he isn't nervous about traveling to another planet, but Kang says no, smiling as the portal pulls him upward. He then shouts that he's damn excited as he's teleported to the new world. Now in Nova, Jintai points to the sky, showing that there are 2 moons. Kang remarks that the place looks like Earth, but a little different. Jintai points to some lights and suggests they head in that direction, where others must be. Halfway there, Kang stops him and says they have a problem. His stomach rumbles loudly, and he tells his friend that he's hungry. Jintai panics, remembering that his friend turns into a beast when he gets hungry. A female voice emerges, asking if they are new around Nova. The woman steps out from the woods and offers to help. Kang asks if there's any food nearby, while Jintai questions if she's from Earth. He explains they arrived practically empty-handed, and the woman seems to understand. She notices Jintai's bundle, but quickly dismisses it, telling him not to worry. The woman then tells them to follow her, claiming she knows a place with food. The two thank her profusely for her help and follow her through the dark forest. She then points to a spot ahead and announces they've reached their destination. The place is a good fishing spot, and she mentions she was lucky to find it. Jintai opens his bundle, saying he's going to make a makeshift fishing rod now. The woman says she'll get the bait, and Jintai agrees with her plan. He continues to assemble the fishing rod, carefully putting the pieces together, but Kang grabs him, yelling that he'll starve to death if he doesn't eat soon. A screen appears, informing him that he crafted the rod and gained a new skill. He gets ready to fish, saying that with bait, he can catch something. Out of patience, Kang yells that he's going to catch the fish with his bare hands now. He dives into the water, and Jintai asks why he did something so crazy. Jintai steps back from the edge, while his friend keeps looking for fish in the water. A voice questions him, asking why he's alone in such an isolated place. The woman returns with a group, and Jintai stammers, asking who those people are. She laughs and asks if he thought they were friends, mocking his naivete. The woman tells him he's in Nova, and that he's just asking to be robbed. The men grab him, and he asks if they were deceived the whole time. She denies it, saying it's about survival and demands he hand over everything he has. Jintai then warns that they will deeply regret it if they touch his friend. One of the bandits slaps him across the face, finding the threat hilarious. Then they ask the woman where the other guy is. One of them scoffs, saying he must have jumped into the water out of fear. Just then, Kang emerges from the water, being chomped on by a giant monster. The group is shocked, and one of them screams that he's being eaten alive. Even in the creature's mouth, he remembers the incredible skill he just acquired. He recalls receiving a black orb from the ogre he defeated earlier. He is then surprised to discover the true power of that mysterious item. The system screen informs him that the item is the ogre's skill orb. Back in the present, he laughs as the monster bites him without causing any damage. The skill he received is ogre skin, which is tougher than steel. With a single move, he finishes off the aquatic creature right there in the river. He then emerges from the water, effortlessly carrying the huge monster on his shoulders. Kang faces the group and says he only has enough food for 2 people. Jintai yells for help, warning that those guys tricked them into a trap, but he seems focused on the crocodile, asking his friend if there's a problem. Jintai screams that they're being robbed and that he even got slapped. The bandits approach, challenging him and asking if he really wants to fight. One of them gets ready to attack, saying they have more people on their side. Kang cuts him off with a swift punch, landing it square on the bandit's face. Then he tells everyone to get ready because he doesn't fix problems. He finishes the sentence by saying that, in fact, he just gets rid of them. Choldu questions the group, asking if they're goons from the Yonggu clan. A group of 5 people is kneeling, listening to him. Their leader confirms it, but asks which clan the newcomer belongs to. Then, Choldu sits on a crocodile and asks who their boss is. The man smiles and says no, it's not him. He reveals that the boss is Yonggu Jian, the strongest in the region. A woman in the group warns that they're screwed because the boss steals stones. At that, Choldu simply takes a bite of the roasted crocodile meat. He says their boss seems pretty troublesome too. The group members react, covering their mouths at the sight. Cheoldu then throws the rest of the animal on the ground in front of them. He stands up and orders them to take him to their boss. Wiping his mouth, he demands to be taken to Yongu immediately. The scene shifts to the Yongu clan's base at night. Suddenly, two men are thrown violently and crash to the ground. Cheoldu remains standing as the henchmen comment on his strength. He then picks his teeth, saying the crocodile meat took a while to digest. The clan members wonder who he is, and one says he came with the newbies. At that, the goon who guided him is called a traitor by his comrades. Cheoldu ignores them and yells for Yongu to come out and fight like a man. Suddenly, a voice pipes up, questioning all the commotion. Jintae Kim watches the situation unfold with a surprised expression. The clan chief appears, walking slowly toward everyone there. Yongu John asks who the hell is messing with his men. The two face off, and the chief says he's too young for that tone. But Cheoldu retorts, asking if he's proud of mistreating the weak. He lunges forward in an instant and lands a direct blow to the chief's face. Yongu smiles and asks if his mother didn't teach him to respect his elders. The clan chief is surprised to hear Cheoldu confirm that she did, and he adds that she also taught him that the strongest one has the say. Yongu grabs his fist and says the rookie is a funny guy. He then raises his own fist and says he really likes the kid, so he proposes that if he wins, Cheoldu will be his second in command. Cheoldu agrees, but warns that he also has a condition if he wins the fight. He points to the henchmen and says that if he wins, he's taking them with him. The group's leader asks where that crazy idea suddenly came from. Cheoldu then yells that it's time for some fun and charges straight into attack. He leaps and delivers a hammer strike with all his might on his opponent. Yongu asks if he wasn't even going to give a warning before starting. He catches Cheoldu's fist and comments that kids these days are impatient. Jintae Kim watches the scene and says the blow had no effect, but the henchman explains that their chief already has 12 skill stones. As Cheoldu attacks, he adds that the chief's skin is like an ogre's. Yongu himself confirms that his skin is as tough as an ogre's. However, his strike begins to break through the chief's reinforced defense. Cheoldu says he's the strongest he's encountered since the ogre. The chief is thrown back, his feet dragging on the ground from the impact. He asks with a smile if the kid is done tickling him. Yongu then charges forward in anger and yells for Cheoldu to go to hell. Their fists collide in midair with tremendous force, but Yongu reacts with a look of surprise and immense pain. His fingers begin to crack from the impact. A notification describes the ogre skin ability, which activates when hit. Cheoldu's skin changes, and he thanks the chief for the blow. He then grabs Yongu's neck with impressive strength. Cheoldu warns him to stay still, or he might get hurt. The clan members shout that they'll help and fight alongside their chief, but the group that came with Cheoldu moves to block their path. Their leader warns that they'll have to get through them first to interfere. One of the henchmen asks if he's really betraying the clan. The henchman replies that his loyalty will always lie with the strongest. With that, Cheoldu lands an uppercut that sends the chief flying. The group that accompanied him watches the scene, completely stunned. Yongu crashes to the ground, and his men shout his name. On the ground, the clan chief begs him to please stop, but Cheoldu readies himself in midair to deliver a finishing blow. The chief screams desperately, pleading for him not to kill him. At the last second, he stops his fist inches from the chief's face. The clan members watch, not understanding his action. Cheoldu then comments that a chief begging for his life is pathetic. The scene changes, showing several bags of supplies left on the ground. His new group says they've packed everything, and he suggests they can go. He turns around when a familiar voice calls out to him. Yongu, still on the ground, asks if he can ask just one question. He asks which clan the young man who defeated him belongs to. Cheoldu looks back and says this whole clan thing is a joke. He reveals to the group that he's just a high school student. The scene shifts, showing someone tying ropes to set up a camp. The new member thanks him for taking them in, and Cheoldu tells them to be useful. He says he now has his first subordinates to fight by his side. Then Cheoldu clenches his fist and states that he still considers himself weak. He remembers the moment he hesitated to finish off the former chief. Alone, he mutters that he should have attacked harder and without stopping. With that, he turns to Jintae and names him the sub-leader. Cheoldu asks if he's given any orders yet, and the boy is quite surprised. Jintae confirms he told them to set up the tents, and Cheoldu congratulates him. The boy asks where they're going, and he says he's already decided their destination. Jintae spots something in the distance, and Cheoldu says his instincts are speaking to him. He adds that they'll get stronger if they go there. Cheoldu then points to a massive dark pyramid looming in the distance. A system window informs them that the location is the sacred pyramid. Cheoldu praises the group, saying they did a good job setting up the tents. He tells them he's going to cross the river and orders them to watch the camp. The former clan leader then asks when they plan to return. Cheoldu replies that he might come back when it's time to return to Earth. The man then explains that the portal in this world opens every 5 days. Jintae is relieved to hear that the portal opens regularly. Cheoldu then decides they will return in 3 days to get the grandfather. He asks for the name of the man who gave him the useful information, but Cheoldu cuts him off and says his new name will be Number 1. Then he declares to everyone that they will be called 1 through 5. alive. The only woman in the group complains, saying they have real names. Cheoldu glares at her and asks if she has a problem with his decision. With that, he turns to leave, and the group says goodbye to them. The scene shows the two of them entering the river to cross. Once on the raft, he asks Jintae what he thinks of his handiwork. Cheoldu complains that rowing is frustrating, but says he's gaining experience. Suddenly, he gets an idea and starts tying a rope tightly. Jintae tells him to sit down, warning that he'll capsize the raft, but Cheoldu says it's too slow and jumps into the water to try something. He dives deep into the river as huge crocodiles swim nearby. Then, he pulls the raft at high speed, and Jintae admits it's faster. The boy watches the situation, realizing how quickly Cheoldu has adapted to this place. The scene flashes back to him cowering and screaming at an earlier moment. He also remembers the moment Cheoldu named him the group's sub-leader. Then, he grips the oar tighter, adopting a different posture. They finally arrive at the pyramid, and Jintae says it's bigger up close. He analyzes the system window, commenting that it's the first time he's seen rewards. Cheoldu says it looks amazing and calls Jintae to get some coins together, but the boy calls Cheoldu by his name, making him stop walking. Jintae proposes that this time they should collect the coins separately. Jintae explains that the world is ending and he still hasn't done anything on his own, so he states that this time he wants to try without anyone's help. The scene changes, showing a beautiful sunset in a nearby forest. Meanwhile, Cheoldu confronts and attacks an ostrich-like monster. He keeps punching the creature, saying that fighting something new is fun. Suddenly, a different dinosaur appears and runs towards him to attack. Cheoldu grabs the monster and asks if it thinks it has a chance. He then lands a powerful blow, saying he's going to turn it into a chicken. After the battle, he says he's collected all the coins and orbs he needed. Suddenly, something unexpected happens, and he turns to look back. A light emanates from a monster, and he wonders what it is. A system window reveals the item is a skill stone. Cheoldu absorbs the item and celebrates, saying he now has a new skill. At that moment, he seems to suddenly remember something very important. He wonders how Jintae is doing, as a monster stealthily approaches. Jintae yells at the monster, telling it to come this way. The creature then roars and starts running angrily towards him. He runs through the forest with the monster chasing closely behind. Then, he pulls a rope hard, saying he hopes it works. The rope from his trap tightens around the creature's neck. The monster is caught and thrown upwards, and he yells that he got it. The creature is left hanging, but it still struggles, trying to break free from the rope. Jintae then leaps and lands a fatal blow on the monster's head. He falls to the ground, exhausted, saying how tiring it is to fight monsters. Holding the weapon, he says it was a good idea to make a knife with teeth. He states that he has his own way of hunting, and will improve it further. But suddenly, a huge forest orc appears right behind him. Jintae turns and looks at the creature, completely surprised by what he sees. The orc attacks with its club, and he narrowly dodges the blow. Fallen on the ground, he watches the orc and says that it's bigger than Cheoldu. The orc prepares to attack, and Jintae, seeing he's cornered, screams for help. Just then, a rock is thrown at high speed towards the monster. The rock hits the orc square in the head, interrupting its attack. The monster is stunned by the impact, unable to react to the blow. Then, the huge orc falls unconscious on the ground right in front of him. Jintae turns to the side and asks what just happened. He then spots Cheoldu in the distance, preparing for a second throw. Cheoldu smiles and finishes his throwing motion with a perfect strike. The scene changes, and he says it was a good thing he went to check on his friend. Jintae laments, saying he could barely handle the weakest monsters here. He adds that he's never done anything on his own, and it's no different here. But Cheoldu approaches and tells him not to be so hard on himself. He offers a piece of meat, saying there's no shame in being weak. Jintae takes the food, while Cheoldu advises him to always keep training. Then, as Jintae watches, Cheoldu starts eating the meat quickly. Cheoldu explains that, as a barbarian, he is different from other humans. Jintae is confused by the revelation, asking what he means. Then, Cheoldu looks at him, surprised, and asks if he really didn't know. He reveals that he is a barbarian from another planet, leaving Jintae shocked. The boy shouts, asking if he means barbarians from video games. Jintae then remembers several moments and realizes it all makes sense. He jumps to his feet, denying that he knew anything. But Cheoldu says he always assumed he already knew all of this. He explains that it makes no sense to compare themselves as they are different. The scene changes, and the two finally arrive back at the sacred pyramid. They offer the coins, and a notification announces that the pyramid has been activated. Then they receive the activation reward, which activates their inventories. Cheoldu deduces that the rewards vary depending on the coins offered. Another window appears, informing them that their recovery rate has been doubled. Jintae celebrates, saying he already feels less tired with the new power. Jintae stands still with a determined expression, staring straight ahead. Then, he touches the pyramid wall and shouts some unknown words. Suddenly, a group of orcs appears, and Jintae screams and hugs Cheoldu. But Cheoldu pushes him away, saying he needs to fight now that he has rewards. Jintae then takes a few steps back, watching Cheoldu slowly approach him. Cheoldu tells him not to be afraid to face the enemies that have appeared, and adds that Jintae has a barbarian fighting by his side now. But Cheoldu charges forward, yelling that he'll meet them on the other side of the battle. Jin-tae reacts with surprise, shouting that he thought they were going to fight together right there. Just then, one of the orcs attacks, but Cheoldu manages to intercept its spear. He holds the weapon, questioning its use against an unarmed opponent. Then, he easily lifts the orc and the spear high into the air. The monster is thrown to the ground, and he says, "That's against the rules." Cheoldu steps on the fallen enemy, telling him to keep the fight fair and clean. Suddenly, another orc appears behind him, ready to strike with all its might. He turns to the side, looking at the new enemy that has appeared, but Jin-tae shows up and lands a surprise blow on the monster's face. The orc stares at the boy, confused by the attack it just received. Jin-tae gets into a fighting stance and challenges the creature to a fight. However, the orc retaliates, landing a direct hit on his face. Then, another enemy joins the attack and starts beating on Jin-tae. He is brutally beaten, screaming that he thinks he's going to die right there. Jin-tae falls to the ground, wounded after the series of attacks from the monsters. Just then, his sacred blessing activates and begins to heal him rapidly. He says that at least he's recovering and it's time to get up. The orc attacks again, but he leaps away from the powerful blow. Running, he shouts that he needs to be strong to be friends with a barbarian. But the monster hits him again, throwing him hard to the ground. Jin-tae is thrown forcefully to the ground, landing far from the enemy. He gets up and says the enemy caught him off guard there. Sitting up, he wipes his face and notes that he's seeing a pattern in the attacks. Then he charges forward, yelling that now it's his turn to attack. He predicts the orc will try an overhead strike, and at the right moment, he dodges to the side and goes on the offensive. He says he needs to dodge the fatal blow to counter the opponent. Jin-tae gets close and manages to land his knife in the orc's body. He then prepares to deliver his finishing blow to the monster. The orc finally falls to its knees, completely out of strength to continue the fight. Jin-tae celebrates his victory, and Cheoldu congratulates him on a job well done. He comments that the boy has gotten stronger, and Jin-tae says he's getting the hang of it. But then he changes the subject and says that Cheoldu is unbelievable. The boy points to the other orcs, saying that he defeated them with spears. Suddenly, a notification announces that he has obtained spear mastery. Cheoldu explains that he gained the new skill by fighting with the stolen weapons. He then realizes he can learn new skills by using different weapons. Excited, he asks if Jin-tae has recovered yet, making the boy suspicious. Cheoldu then points to a spot and tells his friend to look over there. He shows them tracks that will lead them to the hideout and new weapons. The scene changes, showing a lone orc carrying a wooden log. Elsewhere, two spies observe an orc camp from a distance. One of them talks about a vacation, and the other agrees they should head back soon. But suddenly, a hand appears and grabs one of the spies by surprise. Cheoldu appears and motions for the two spies to be quiet. One of them questions his lack of a disguise since they're in enemy territory. The spy then advises him to leave, saying the place is dangerous. He points to the leader, a massive orc lord sitting on his throne. The other comments that they'd need an army, but Cheoldu notices the weapon. Then, he stands up and announces he's going to take the leader's axe. Cheoldu and Jin-tae start walking toward the orc camp. The monsters inside are screaming, while several bodies are scattered across the ground. He faces the orc lord, who is standing amidst the chaos. Cheoldu tells Jin-tae to rest, saying the big enemy is his. Jin-tae watches, wondering how he learned to speak the orc language. But Cheoldu explains that he just repeated what they were saying to him. The orc lord becomes furious at being grossly insulted by a human. He charges with full force, delivering a powerful blow with his axe. Cheoldu simply stops the attack. Cheoldu sizes up the orc, realizing the armor will make the fight difficult. Suddenly, one of the spears on the ground flies in his direction. He uses the broken axe to defend himself from the unexpected attack. Faced with the situation, he decides he needs to change his strategy quickly. Cheoldu charges forward and manages to grab the orc lord's leg with great force. He prepares to take his enemy's weapon to use in the fight. Then, he yells that he's going to take the monster's axe for himself. He uses his strength to lift the orc lord off the ground without difficulty. The huge monster reacts, completely surprised by his opponent's strength. Cheoldu rips the axe from its hands, thanking it for the gift. He leaps and delivers a finishing blow to the large orc's head. A system window announces that he has obtained axe mastery. The spy watches the scene, saying he can't believe he defeated the leader. Jin-tae also celebrates, shouting that Cheoldu destroyed the giant monster that showed up. The other spy says he's incredible, almost like a monster himself. With the axe in hand, he asks who the real monster is now. The scene shifts to a military base, showing the facade of a building. In her office, Colonel Jang says he defeated the ogre monster alone. The soldier confirms, and she adds that he also eliminated orcs in Nova. She then asks why they weren't keeping an eye on a talent like him. Reading the report, the colonel discovers he's a high school student. She orders them to enlist him immediately, but the soldier warns it won't be easy. The colonel reflects, saying they need to keep people like him under control. Just then, Officer O announces his arrival from outside the room. She smiles with a dark look and invites him into her office. The soldier then asks if she plans to send pursuers after the young boy, but the colonel warns that if he refuses, They'll have to force him to come. Officer Junhwan Oh enters and asks if anything fun happened around here. The scene changes to a disaster area where a portal has opened. Someone points, shouting for them to look at the thugs who were beaten up. Another man says they deserved it, since they stole from him too. The camera focuses on the feet of Cheoldu and his friends as they walk. The two arrive back on Earth after being away for a while. Jintae comments that it seems everyone already knows what he did. Cheoldu smiles and says it's good to finally be back home. Suddenly someone approaches and stops right in front of them. The person calls out Cheoldu's name, making the group stop and look. A uniformed woman named Seung-ah Choi appears before the entire group. She introduces herself and says she's here with a proposal from the army. Cheoldu wonders about the proposal, while Jintae notices her beauty. The lieutenant starts to speak, but he cuts her off and keeps walking. He calls for Jintae, and the woman asks him to wait a minute. Seung-ah shouts that they're offering him the position of a commissioned officer, but Cheoldu simply rejects the offer, saying he's not interested. She gets annoyed, but a hand on her shoulder stops her. The man calls him a cocky student, and Cheoldu stops and stares him down. The officer attacks, but Cheoldu manages to block the blow with his arm. He then smirks and asks if the rookie is ready to talk now. Cheoldu is pushed back by the force of the impact. He prepares to retaliate, angrily charging toward his opponent. Then, he unleashes a flurry of quick strikes against the military officer. Jintae watches the scene, shouting Cheoldu's name amidst the chaos. The officer manages to block one of Cheoldu's blows with his arm. Cheoldu is surprised, noting that his opponent is strong and very fast, but the man warns him that he's just a rookie compared to the guys from Neo Seoul. Clutching his chest, Cheoldu repeats the name of the place he just heard. The officer tells him to accept his duty and join the army. Cheoldu then reflects, saying the real challenges were back in Nova. The man asks if he wants in, and Cheoldu says he seems strong. Then he says he'll give it his all, but on one condition. He charges forward, shouting that he won't enlist in the army no matter what. The officer accepts the challenge and calls his threat cute. Cheoldu lunges at him, asking if he still thinks the attack is cute now. He yells as he prepares a blow with all his accumulated strength. The blow then lands squarely on the officer's guard with a powerful impact. The man wonders where that strength came from, feeling the impact in his arms. Just then, Cheoldu unleashes a series of blows, which the officer tries to block quickly. He finishes the sequence with a strike that sends the officer flying. The soldier is left breathless, wondering what's happening in this fight. He realizes he can't counter any of his opponent's attacks, so the officer charges in to attack, saying he has to protect his pride. He attempts a direct hit, claiming there's no way he can lose this fight, but Cheoldu manages to stop the officer's punch with just one hand. He counters with a powerful uppercut that sends the soldier flying into the air. The officer crashes to the ground, completely defeated by the blow. Jintae asks if Cheoldu won, and the other guy comments on the inhuman fight. The lieutenant runs to help the officer, who is sitting injured on the ground. Cheoldu remarks that the fight wasn't half bad, observing the scene. He then turns to leave, telling him they'll meet in Nova. The woman asks if the officer is crying, and he says the kid is strong. The man says the kid beat him up as he wipes his bloody face. He promises himself that he will remember the name Cheoldu Kang. The scene shifts, showing an unknown person watching the grandfather's house. Inside, the grandfather asks if it's true that the earth is ending. He says he only believed it because his grandson brought the giant axe home. Cheoldu invites him to come to Nova with him, but his grandfather refuses. The grandfather explains that he doesn't have many days left and prefers to stay. Cheoldu reflects, agreeing that the place is too dangerous for his grandfather. He warns that when the time comes, he'll take him with him one way or another. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and the grandfather asks if he invited someone over. Cheoldu is surprised, commenting that whoever rang the bell is very fast. Cheoldu asks if his friend found out anything new about the other world. Jintae says yes, but the government is censoring information about Nova. He then deduces that those who know the truth are taking advantage of it. Jintae remembers what the soldier said about a place called Neo Seoul. He explains that Cheongju isn't the only place where a portal opens. Then, he adds that the government and corporations are developing Nova, and Neo Seoul is one example, connected to a portal that opened 2 years ago. Cheoldu calculates that this is equivalent to 10 years in Nova's time. Jintae warns that since it's already been developed, they won't get any rewards there. Cheoldu says he liked the new continent, but staying there would slow him down. He decides to go to Neo Seoul to get better weapons and equipment. Jintae asks how they'll get there, and Cheoldu stands up, ready to leave immediately. He smiles confidently, saying he has his own ways. The scene shifts, showing a car speeding down an empty road. His old group says they'll go with them, but they still have business to take care of. Cheoldu tells them to go ahead, as he'll meet them after they sort things out. He replies with a smile, saying he only gets rid of those who threaten him. Suddenly, Jintae looks out the window and realizes they've already arrived. The car stops in front of a large complex with a portal in the sky. A caption identifies the location as the Paju Portal, also known as Neo Seoul. Jin-tae wonders what the place is like, but Cheoldu says it doesn't matter. He then readies himself, stating that all that matters is that he can get stronger there. Jin-tae says the place really lives up to the name Neo Seoul, exceeding his expectations. He notes that it looks as developed as the old Joseon dynasty. Suddenly, a nearby woman starts screaming for help. She points to a thief running through the crowd with a sword. Cheoldu watches the scene and remarks that there are bad guys everywhere. The thief charges toward them, yelling for everyone to get out of the way, but Cheoldu intercepts him, grabbing his face with one hand. He then slams the man to the ground, pinning him. With a determined look, he announces that he's finally arrived in Neo Seoul. The scene changes, and the two are sitting at an outdoor restaurant. The woman they helped serves the pair 2 bowls of soup. She thanks them, saying they saved her entire month's savings. Jin-tae comments on how great civilization is, and Cheoldu gives thanks for the food. He then remembers when he had to eat crocodile meat and starts to cry. Then he's shocked to see how many bowls Cheoldu has already eaten. The woman offers more food, saying it's on the house for them. Cheoldu replies that it was nothing, and she can call him anytime she needs help. As he eats, the woman warns them that there are many invaders in this region. Jin-tae then asks if these incidents happen often around here. She explains that the strong now hunt the weak to survive, but Cheoldu says that's even better because the bad guys will be his prey. The woman advises them to use the discovery skill before fights. She realizes it's their first time and explains that the skill is essential. Then she reveals that the power lets you check other people's skills. Jin-tae gets excited, and Cheoldu stands up, telling his friend they should go immediately. The woman questions him, asking if he's going on a hunt empty-handed. She insists, saying that you need to be properly equipped to hunt. The scene changes to show a brand new piece of leather armor. The two appear in armor, and Jin-tae says that now all they need are weapons. He runs toward the workshop the woman recommended to them earlier. Cheoldu and Jin-tae arrive at the workshop, and the boy wonders about the master. The scene shows an older man who seems to have the hiccups. He turns to the pair and asks what they want. Cheoldu says they need weapons, and Jin-tae complains about the smell, but the man tells them he has no weapons and to get lost. Jin-tae insists, asking if he takes custom orders and if he can make any weapon. The blacksmith explains that the city's workshops are all gone. Cheoldu then asks why the workshops just disappeared. The man reveals that bandits took over the iron mines on Obong Mountain. Cheoldu asks if these bandits also steal from the people who live here. The blacksmith tells them about the Big Three, and one of them is the leader, Ho Cheol. He adds that the man is a wanted criminal with a huge gang. Cheoldu's eyes light up. He asks if the man will make their weapons if they take care of the leader. The blacksmith reacts when he sees the axe and asks how he got the item. He then promises that if they help him, he'll make any weapon they ask for. Cheoldu turns to leave, saying he'll be back for the best weapon. Jin-tae asks why he needs another weapon since he already has the axe. He explains that it's good to be prepared as fighting styles can change, but the boy asks if they'll really be able to hunt anything here. The scene shows another group that has already captured the owl they were looking for. Then, Cheoldu and Jin-tae see that another group is already at the location. They find themselves surrounded, realizing the hunting ground is occupied. Jin-tae starts to complain, but Cheoldu cuts him off and tells him to wait a moment. He bends down and picks up a small stone from the ground. Using his skill, he throws the stone with incredible force. The object flies through the air and hits something with a sudden huge impact. The stone knocks an owl out of the sky. Jin-tae is stunned to see the animal fall right in front of him. He gets closer and confirms that the downed animal is indeed an owl. Cheoldu explains that he wasn't sensing the animal, but something else entirely. Cheoldu tells Jin-tae to go get the skill stone from the fallen owl. He then absorbs the item and acquires the new skill, Discovery. He says he can now see his own information, and Jin-tae asks what it says. The system window shows his tribe, traits, and skills so far. Cheoldu studies the window, noting the traits and skills he's already learned. Then, he notices a skill called Fairy's Blessing on his list. He stops and stares intently at the Fairy's Blessing skill. Jin-tae then asks what the new skill says about his information, but Cheoldu turns to him and replies that he can't see anything. The scene shows 2 men watching the pair from a distance, hidden in a tree. The 2 men are Sergeant Youngsu Ki and Captain Junseop Choi. The captain notices a small cut has suddenly appeared on his face. The sergeant points to the wound, and the captain touches his own face. The scene shows that the stone hit the bird just before it reached him. The captain says they need to recruit him, and the sergeant notes their direction. The sergeant wonders if they're really heading to Obong Mountain. Meanwhile, Jin-tae asks Cheoldu if they've reached the bandits' territory yet. Hiding, the bandits wonder how they dare to enter their territory. One of the men comments that the kid looks like he has a lot to offer. Another bandit then notices the axe, saying it's a beautiful weapon. Their leader smirks, saying the 2 of them are just begging to be robbed. Then, their leader, Hocheol Jang, declares that the hunt is finally about to begin. The duo arrives at Obong Mountain, the one the blacksmith told them about. Jin-tae says they don't see any bandits, even though they're already deep inside. He asks if Cheoldu is sure, since the Big Three are strong, but Cheoldu declares he won't lose and is eager to test out his axe. Suddenly, he turns to the side, noticing a strange movement. An arrow is fired, and he throws himself in front to protect Jin-tae. He manages to deflect the arrow with his axe just in time. Then, several bandits appear, surrounding the two with bows and arrows. Cheoldu smiles, commenting that they're giving them quite a welcome. He realizes the fog and the mountains make for ideal terrain. Then he yells to Jintai, warning him that they've fallen into a trap. He tells his friend to stay back as more arrows are fired in their direction. With his ogre skin, he manages to block all the arrows by himself. The arrows ricochet off his body, causing no damage at all. Jintai yells from behind him, asking if he's okay after the attack. Cheoldu tells Jintai to get out of there, saying the situation is bad for him. He explains that it's impossible to escape them now that they're in this forest. Jintai then notices something strange and asks if the arrows were poisoned. Cheoldu explains that his ogre skin can't block their poison. He says his friend will just get in the way and tells him to leave again. Then, he clenches his fist and tells Jintai not to underestimate him. The boy yells that he'll go get help and starts running away. Cheoldu moves forward, saying he can finally start having fun in this fight. He prepares to attack, holding the axe with both hands. The scene shows nighttime, and a scream can be heard in the distance. The scene changes, showing the blacksmith defeating one of the bandits with a hammer. Meanwhile, Cheoldu gets ready to strike another enemy with his axe. He realizes the poison is getting stronger and he's losing control. Suddenly, a bandit appears and tries to attack him from behind with a knife, but Cheoldu turns and swings his axe, yelling that it's not over. The bandits wonder how he can still move with the poison. Cheoldu knows he can't drag out the fight and decides to act fast. He jumps and starts spinning with the axe in his hands to attack. With that, he defeats all the enemies around him at once. The impact of Cheoldu's blow creates a huge shockwave. He starts running, saying he's close to the base of the mountain, but he stops suddenly, facing an unexpected obstacle. He stares at a huge pit, wondering how it appeared in front of him. Cheoldu smiles, realizing what happened and why he was there. Suddenly, a voice says he's a difficult prey to capture. The leader, Hocheol Jang, appears, saying he's impressed he made it this far. Cheoldu asks if he's the leader, realizing he was led there. Hocheol confirms, commenting that he's an interesting person to hunt. Cheoldu glares at him, saying it's disappointing that he calls this a hunt, but the leader says he talks too much for someone who's poisoned. Hocheol says that soon he'll be just a rock falling into the pit. He offers him a chance, saying he might find a use for him. Cheoldu smiles and says if it were a warrior's fight, he'd take the risk. He leaps up, declaring that he won't let his fate be decided for him. The leader calls him a lunatic as he watches the young man jump backward. As he falls, he yells that he'd rather jump than die at the hands of a bandit. He falls into the water, sinking alongside several bones and pieces of equipment. Cheoldu starts to lose consciousness and wonders if he's going to die there. The scene changes, and Aiden finds himself alone in an unknown place. He looks around and recognizes the hills of Valhalla, his homeland. Then, he wonders if this is a barbarian's inner realm. He remembers his father talking about a place to train the soul. Aiden questions why he's there with his childhood appearance. Suddenly, he feels something strange and places a hand on his chest. Just then, several small, colorful creatures appear, flying around him. A caption explains that those creatures are spirits summoned by fairies. Aiden says that for barbarians, a fairy's blessing is a curse. A flashback shows that the spirits have been with him since he was born. He remembers when he told his friends, and they thought he was disgusting. When the secret spread, all the barbarians demanded he be burned at the stake. His family became enemies of the tribe, and he blames himself, but his mother tells him it's not his fault, and to accept who he is. She then says goodbye with a smile, asking him to take care of himself. Aiden says that ever since then, he has rejected the spirits and himself. He wonders if his soul is trapped in the past because of this, but he wipes away his tears and says he needs to survive at all costs. He remembers his parents' sacrifice to protect him from everyone. So, he sits down and says that maybe he can heal his wounds here. He begins to concentrate, saying he needs to control his entire body. He says he will master his mind and body and embrace the pain. Back in reality, Cheoldu coughs, seemingly in great pain. He yells that he needs to expel all the poison from his body immediately. He opens his eyes and realizes he can finally move again. Then, he says his body feels lighter, as if it's been set free. The system window shows several notifications for poison resistance. He emerges from the water, roaring with all his might. A notification informs him that he has acquired the poison resistance skill. He says that he survived and is one step closer to becoming a warrior. He says he survived and is one step closer to being a warrior. He celebrates his progress, saying he feels even stronger now, but then he realizes the situation and wonders how he's going to get out of there. He walks through the pit and feels a breeze coming from a specific direction. The breeze comes from a large stone, which seems to be blocking a passage. He touches the stone and realizes it's loose. Cheoldu removes the stone, revealing the entrance to a dark tunnel ahead. He finds a knoll nest, a secret dungeon with a special mission. Excited, he says that crisis truly creates great opportunities for him. The scene changes, showing Jintae desperately running to get some help. A bandit yells at him to stop, saying he can't run from them, but Jintae shouts back, asking if he thought he would stop. He's caught by one of the bandits, who yells that he finally got him. The bandit throws him hard to the ground, completely immobilizing him. Then, he raises his sword and says he'll take good care of his items. Jintae is grabbed by the bandit, who starts to choke him with great force. But suddenly, Something hits the man and throws him far away. The bandit falls to the ground and Jin-tae stares, not understanding the situation. Just then, the two soldiers emerge from the forest and ask if he's okay. He gets scared and asks who they are, but the captain tells him to wait. They are surrounded by the bandits, and the captain decides to deal with them first. The group of bandits then charges, screaming, toward the two soldiers. Captain Choi draws his sword and orders all units to attack. The scene shifts to the dungeon, where a lot of blood splatters on the wall. Choldu is inside, stepping on a gnoll and calling them mutts. Suddenly, a horde of gnolls appears, and he realizes they just keep coming. He wonders if he's missing something, since killing dozens of them isn't working. Just then, the shadow of a chief with a whip appears on the cave wall. The chief shouts orders to his soldiers, motivating all the gnolls to attack. The leader finally reveals himself, commanding his army in the dark dungeon. He realizes the gnolls in the dungeon had a leader commanding them. Childu charges forward, yelling for the mutts to get out of his way immediately. He clears a path through the enemies, punching and slashing everyone in his way. He leaps toward the chief, preparing a powerful blow with his axe. The system window reminds him that the objective is to defeat the gnoll chief. The gnoll chief is a warlock, and he prepares for battle. Childu yells, asking if he's really the chief of this tribe. The chief casts a spell and launches several fire projectiles at him. The attack explodes, and Cheoldu shields himself from the impact with his arms. He activates his ogre skin and says that was a rude greeting. Cheoldu prepares to strike back, saying it's his turn now. The notification explains that his throwing skill increases his strength and speed. He throws the axe, which spins at high speed toward the chief. The chief manages to block the attack, holding the axe with his staff. He starts to laugh as he holds the axe thrown by Cheoldu. While the chief is distracted, Cheoldu leaps for a direct attack from above. He tells the filthy mutt not to be so quick to attack. The attack hits the chief, causing a huge explosion and destroying the ground. Both weapons, the axe and the staff, fall to the ground after the impact. Cheoldu gets up and picks up both weapons, holding one in each hand. He notices that the staff is quite firm and sturdy for a weapon. Then he says that in barbarian tradition, warriors take the chief's head. He braces himself, raising the axe with both hands for a final blow. The blow finishes off the chief, and he celebrates clearing the dungeon successfully. Suddenly, he is surprised by the amount of rewards he receives. The system window informs him about the chief's crest he earned. He also acquires the Guardian's Great Staff, which was used by the warlock. The window also informs him that the bonus is the activation of the world map. A strange mark begins to form on one of his arms. The map materializes in his hand, and he wonders what it is. He realizes the map only marks the places he has already visited. Then, he looks at the map and sees several exclamation points scattered around. He gets excited when he realizes the entire area is still unexplored. Suddenly, a warning sound chimes, and he wonders what happened. The dungeon starts to flood, and he realizes it's closing. He decides to grab all the coins and stones before getting out. Choldu emerges from the water, gasping for air after the sudden flood in the cave. He notices the walls are too smooth and he can't climb out. He touches the wall of the pit, confirming there's no way to climb. Suddenly, he hears a voice and wonders if it's Jin-tae calling for him. Jin-tae shouts for him, and Choldu answers, saying he's down there. The boy cries in relief and says he's going to throw down a rope. Choldu is moved to see that his friend kept his promise to help. He gets out of the pit and finds the soldiers, asking if they want to see something. The captain decides that since they've been seen, they must follow and protect Cheoldu. The soldiers agree to hide their military ties, and Jin-tae points them out. He introduces them, saying the two saved him from the bandits earlier. Captain Choi introduces himself, and Sergeant Kai says they are colleagues. Cheoldu uses his skill, noticing that the two men seem very strong. The soldiers worry, wondering if he knows they're from the army. Cheoldu asks if they are also there to defeat the local bandits. He asks what kind of grudge they have against the mountain gang. The sergeant makes something up, shouting that his mother was killed by those bandits. Cheoldu says he will help him get revenge since they saved Jin-tae. The two are confused, and the sergeant says he's still just a student. He then promises he will finally let his mother rest in peace. The sergeant thanks him, apologizing to his mother for the lie he told. Cheoldu laughs, and the sergeant thinks he's really on another level. The captain asks what his plan is to deal with the bandits now. He turns with a smile, and the captain calls him Mr. Cheoldu. The soldier corrects himself, calling him Brother Cheoldu, and asking about the plan. Cheoldu explains that the plan is to scout the area and find their base. He adds that after that, they just need to march in and crush their leader. The captain calls him younger brother and says they don't need to search. He points, revealing that the main base is on the 4th eastern peak. Cheoldu asks how he knows, and he says he scouted it out for revenge. So he decides to go straight to the mountaintop to find the leader. He points forward, saying that real men face their enemies head on. The scene shows the captain dodging enemy attacks with his sword. Another bandit shoots, and Cheoldu shatters the poisoned arrows with a single strike. The system window informs him that his poison resistance has been activated. He charges forward, shouting that the bandits' attacks won't stop him anymore. Cheoldu celebrates, saying his new resistance skill is amazing. The sergeant comments that although it's reckless, he made it there on his own. The captain agrees, saying that at this rate, he might actually defeat the leader. The scene shows there are three main factions in that region of the map. The first is Neo Seoul, protected by the army in the southwest. The second faction is the Obong Mountain bandits in the northeast, and the last one is the invading knights from the northern desert. The captain explains that the army hasn't been able to deal with the bandits yet. The reason is that Neo Seoul wouldn't be safe without the soldiers. He adds that if Major Lee got hurt, it would be the end. So, he wonders if Cheoldu could defeat the leader for them. Suddenly, Cheoldu stumbles and Jintae asks what happened to him. The captain warns that he's burning up with a fever, and Cheoldu groans. A window warns that his stone absorption has reached a dangerous overload. The captain asks how many he used, and Cheoldu says it was about 30. The sergeant says that's beyond human limits and could be fatal. He urges them to take him back, but the captain says it's too late. The group is surrounded by dozens of bandits emerging from all sides. One of the men recognizes Cheoldu, looking at him with a surprised expression. Cheoldu recognizes him too, saying it's the guy who fell into the pit. He lunges toward the man, ready to carve a path through the crowd. Cheoldu strikes him, shouting for the small fry to get out of the way. He roars and calls for the leader to come out, saying he's here for revenge. While the sergeant tries to help, the leader calmly picks his teeth. Hokeol appears, asking who dares to call the name of the Mountain King. Cheoldu smirks, commenting on how full of himself he is for a bandit. The leader says he'll kill him properly this time, since he came back alive from the trap. He orders his men to attack, and they all charge into the fight. The two soldiers fight the bandits, cutting a path with their swords. The leader leaps to attack, saying he'll take care of Cheoldu personally. The leader attacks with his weapon, and Cheoldu blocks the blow with his axe. Hocheol says it was a good defense and wants to see how long he can last. Cheoldu shouts at him to stop talking and just fight already. The two then begin to exchange a series of violent, rapid blows. Hocheol grins, preparing to unleash an even more powerful attack on him, but Cheoldu retaliates with a strike from the axe handle to his stomach. The impact sends the bandit leader flying into the air with great force. On the ground, Cheoldu admits his opponent is too powerful to be defeated like this. He also realizes that the range of the leader's weapon is a problem, so he grips his axe tightly, thinking of a new attack strategy. Deciding to keep it simple, he runs and throws the axe with all his might. Hokeol spins his weapon in the air, trying to intercept the thrown axe. Cheoldu uses his skill, pouring all his strength into the axe throw. The two weapons clash in midair with an extremely violent impact. The axe gets caught in the other weapon's chain and continues forward with full force. Cheoldu yells that he'll fight the leader with just his bare hands. He charges forward, delivering a sequence of rapid blows toward his opponent. Hokeol dodges and asks if he thinks that will make any difference. He says that his weak human body is no match for his own. Then he lands a direct blow to Cheoldu's stomach with full force. Cheoldu activates Ogre Skin and warns him that he's not human. The leader says he knew he had Ogre Skin, but he lands a blow that sends Cheoldu flying back, cutting himself off. Cheoldu looks back and shouts that he's had enough of the cheap talk. Hocheol complains about the youth of today, who don't listen to their elders. He also activates Ogre Skin, which is tougher than steel. Cheoldu is surprised to see that the leader also has the same skill. Hocheol charges forward, saying the kid hasn't seen anything yet. The two trade blows, and their force creates a shockwave. The impact of their exchange makes Cheoldu spit up a large amount of blood. Hocheol lands a powerful blow, sending Cheoldu flying backward with full force. The others watch the scene, completely shocked by what they're seeing. Jintae says he's never seen anyone stronger than Cheoldu in his life. The sergeant suggests they grab Cheoldu and run when they get a chance. Suddenly, the captain points to the sky, and the sergeant looks up. Hocheol grabs Cheoldu by the head, squeezing with all his might. Cheoldu screams in pain as the leader continues to crush his head. The two soldiers wonder what kind of power he's using. Just then, one of the bandits charges to attack Jintae, who was distracted, but Captain Choi intercepts the attack and manages to protect the boy just in time. Another bandit says the chief is using his strongest move in the fight. Hocheol says they're all dead now, using his full power. He asks where all of Cheoldu's confidence went. The leader reveals he has hunted 2 ogres, not just one. He says he is the personification of power, and a notification explains the ogre power. Suddenly, Cheoldu starts laughing, as if nothing is happening to him. He asks if that's all the bandit leader can do. Hocheol grabs him, telling him to stop acting so tough. He starts to squeeze, and the leader realizes something is strange about him. Just then, Cheoldu screams and seems to be releasing some kind of energy from his body. The scream is so loud that everyone around stops to watch the scene. The others watch, not understanding what's happening in the middle of the fight. Jintai shouts Cheoldu's name as the leader holds him tightly. Cheoldu burps, and the system window announces that he has absorbed the stones. Hokiol asks if he just burped, saying it was a very strange thing to see. He squeezes Cheoldu's stomach and warns that he's going to knock him out for good, but Cheoldu grabs his arm, asking who said he was just playing around. He says something has been bothering him since the fight started. The leader realizes that Cheoldu has suddenly gotten stronger, without understanding why. Cheoldu then throws the leader into the air with impressive force. He says you have to throw your weight into your opponent and release your energy. Then, he squeezes harder, crushing the bandit leader's shoulder. He stands up and asks if it was easy, leaving the boss on the ground. The bandits wonder if their boss is being defeated by a rookie. The captain realizes that although the leader had the advantage, he's losing. Hocheol shouts in anger, telling him not to mess with his arm. He grabs another weapon, a flail, and charges at him with everything he's got. The leader attacks, yelling that he's going to kill him for what happened. Cheoldu dodges the flail's attack and smiles at his opponent. The captain notices that he's absorbed the stones and his reflexes have improved. The leader keeps attacking, but Cheoldu manages to dodge every blow. He grabs Hocheol's arm, stopping his attack with one hand. The captain says he's nullifying the ogre's power, something superhuman. Cheoldu scoffs, asking where the embodiment of power he talked about is now. He lets go of the leader, saying that's enough of his personal revenge. Cheoldu says it's time to get justice for Yongsu's mother and the citizens. Hocheol sees the axe and yells that it's his main weapon. He shouts that he hates scumbags who prey on the weak and attacks. With a single swing of his axe, he defeats the bandit leader once and for all. Hocheol's body falls to the ground, completely defeated by the final blow. The captain watches in shock, saying that he just defeated one of the big three. Just then, the leader's treasure pouch appears, floating in the air for everyone to see. Cheoldu approaches the bandits, who beg him to spare them and take everything. He grabs the bag and says the item is too heavy for him to carry. Suddenly, the leader's body disappears, and Cheoldu asks why it vanished. The captain explains that rankers are classified as monsters, and Cheoldu asks how to become one. He then says you need to reach the 50-point limit in any skill. Cheoldu looks at his stats and realizes he's not at that level yet. The captain comments that even with the ogre's power, the leader lost to him. Cheoldu calls the two over and tells them to head back, saying the soup is on him. The captain realizes that Cheoldu is already beyond normal human limits. He thinks about Cheoldu Kang, while Jintai asks if he's okay. A voice says he can't wait to see how strong he'll become. Back at the restaurant, Jintai says he found a bow in the bag. Cheoldu offers it to the soldiers, but they refuse his offer. The captain says they should be the ones rewarding him, and decides to reveal himself. He reveals that they are soldiers from the Defense Operations Command Unit. Cheoldu takes a sip of his drink, saying he already figured that out. He says it was obvious from the way they talked and acted. The captain explains they were only monitoring him to see if he was any good. Cheoldu asks what the verdict was, and the captain says he's good. He invites him to the government office to receive his reward. The captain reveals he's 12 years older, and the sergeant is 11. Cheoldu smiles and says he now has 2 older brothers. The soldiers laugh, but think that if it weren't for their orders, they would have acted. The scene changes to the next day. At the central government office in Neo Seoul, a man asks why the city's hero hasn't arrived yet. The guard calls him captain, but he glares at him angrily and corrects him. The man is Major General Junpil Park, a role-playing addict. The door opens, and the guard announces the arrival of Cheoldu and Jintae. The major praises Cheoldu's charisma as he enters the room. He introduces himself, and Cheoldu asks if he's the tribe's chieftain. The major gets excited, wondering if Cheoldu is also a role-playing addict. He thanks them for their service and says he wants to offer a reward and a proposal. Cheoldu warns that he won't join the army, but the major denies it. Instead, he invites him to create his own mercenary squad. Cheoldu is tempted, as this would mean he wouldn't have to formally join the army. He asks what full support means, and the major begins to explain. Cheoldu gets excited when he hears he'll have access to hot soup and accepts. He asks what the catch is and what they want in return. The major says their first official mission is to eliminate the invading knights. Jintae panics, as they are led by one of the big three. A mysterious voice emerges from the shadows, asking if they're already scared. The person warns that they don't stand a chance against the invading knights. Cheoldu then comments that the mood in the room suddenly turned cold. The woman walks forward, asking who the rookie trying to take what's hers is, but he stares her down, introducing himself as a proud warrior named Cheoldu Kang. The woman starts to draw her sword, saying that a boy is talking back. However, Cheoldu manages to stop the sword's blade using only his finger. She points the sword, saying it looks like someone needs to learn some manners. He asks if she expects good manners from someone pointing a sword at him. The woman introduces herself as Major Yunyoung Lee, acknowledging his courage. He smiles and says it's a pleasure to meet her, but he calls her by her first name, Yunyoung, which makes the major furious. She yells, asking how he dares, and he questions her way of greeting him. The major asks if he's provoking the swordmaster of Joseon. The two glare at each other angrily, but Cheoldu challenges her to a fight. The major general then interferes, asking the future heroes not to fight there. He offers some snacks to Choldu, who gets excited and is immediately distracted. Then, the Major General calls Major Lee for a private conversation elsewhere. He says her attitude was insubordination, and she questions the mission. She insists she could handle the Knights, but the Major General cuts her off. He says it's time for her to accept that they can't win alone. A flashback shows an intense battle between the soldiers and the invading Knights. In the memory, Major Lee defeats the leader, and her soldiers celebrate the victory. She wonders why the Knights leader let her win the fight. He says she's grown up, but she points her sword at him and questions him. The Major yells, asking why he let her win their battle. The man says it was a farewell gift for a former student. He then dares her to kill him, saying that Neo's soul won't last. She prepares herself, and he encourages her to deliver the final blow. But she lowers her sword, deciding not to take her opponent's life. He calls her soft, and she says she won't accept a victory from a traitor. She promises that one day the army will defeat the invading Knights. Back in the present, she says she needs to defeat the leader on her own. The Major General agrees, saying he'll let her do it her way this time. He calls out to her and says he has a plan to make sure everything works out. Chioldu wonders about the plan to merge the squad with the army. The Major General explains that the Knights are a threat and must be eliminated. Chioldu is surprised to learn that the invading Knights use horses to fight. Chioldu gets excited, asking if he can keep the horses after they win. He remembers his father, the greatest horseman of the barbarian tribe that ever lived. So he accepts the proposal, but says there's one last thing to settle. Chioldu approaches Major Lee, who stares at him, not understanding the situation. He asks if she's thinking the same thing, about settling their hierarchy. The Major smiles and agrees, saying it's finally something she can accept. The scene changes to the central government office's training ground. Jintae asks how he's going to fight, remembering his axe is broken. But Chioldu says he'll use a sword since the principles are the same. He then presses a button on the interface that appeared in front of him. The ranker's treasure pouch is taken from his inventory. Jintae worries, as her sword looks much stronger than his. Major Lee waits patiently, holding her sword in her right hand. Chioldu says that only amateurs blame their weapons in a fight. He gets into position, saying he's a professional and ready to fight. The Major General wonders if he's really going to face the greatest swordswoman with a sword. The Major says it's time to shut him up once and for all. The Major General asks them to fight carefully, as they are both important. Chioldu points his sword and tells her to attack first, out of respect for her elders. The Major says he's getting a big head just because he beat Hochul. She leaps, preparing to strike with a downward blow. She says she'll show him how to really handle a sword. Chioldu manages to block her strike, and their swords clash in midair. He yells that it's his turn now, and prepares a powerful counterattack, but she dodges and warns that at that speed, his attack won't hit her. The Major strikes back, and he manages to dodge her attacks with difficulty. He realizes she's incredibly fast, faster than anyone he's ever faced. She comments that he's better at dodging than she expected at the start of the fight. Then, she asks if he minds if she takes it up a notch. She concentrates her mana, and her sword begins to glow with energy. Chioldu is surprised to see her sword is also glowing with energy. He starts blocking her attacks, which are coming from all directions. The swords clash, and he finds himself surrounded by her rapid attacks. She moves at high speed, creating multiple after-images of herself around him. She asks what he thinks of the Swordmaster of Joseon now. He realizes she's strong and fast, and that he might lose. A notification informs him that he has obtained sword mastery, and he understands. He challenges her, asking if she wants a taste of his swordsmanship now. Chioldu rushes forward and manages to parry one of her attacks with his sword. The Major is stunned, wondering how he managed to parry her strike. The two leap into the air and begin to exchange blows. The Major realizes he's managing to keep up with her speed in the fight. She's astonished, since before he could barely dodge her attacks. Suddenly, Chioldu vanishes, leaving a trail of dust behind him. The Major wonders if her dynamic vision suddenly lost track of him. Chioldu appears behind the Major and says he wins when it comes to speed. He hits her with a strike that sends her flying. The Major manages to recover, but she's dragged back by the impact of the attack. She realizes that when it comes to power, he wins too. So she decides she'll have to aim for his blind spot to win, but Chioldu simply dodges her strike by tilting his head back. He jumps away, escaping the attack and putting distance between himself and the Major once again. The Major despairs, wondering who this guy is. She can't believe she's losing to a rookie, but he cuts her off. He points his sword, saying she's looking away again. He declares that the winner of the match is him, Chioldu Kang, by a long shot. The scene shifts to the new base for the army's mercenary unit. Chioldu looks around, noting that he likes how spacious the place is. The sergeant tells the Major to call Chioldu Captain, and she questions it. She approaches and asks what the mercenary captain plans to do with them. The scene shows the captured bandits trembling in fear. Chioldu smiles with a wicked look, saying he already has a plan. A flashback shows Chioldu telling the Major to call him Big Brother. She reluctantly agrees, but he pretends he couldn't hear her properly. The Major watches, wondering how he defeated the swordswoman so easily. Two soldiers celebrate the victory, and the Major gets angry with them. He yells, asking whose side they're on and what just happened. One of the guards approaches and calls for the major, who gives him a serious look. The guard reports that the rest of the mountain bandits have been captured. The major comments on how many men their leader managed to gather. Suddenly, Cheoldu appears and approaches Major Park from behind. The major is startled, and Cheoldu asks if he can have the bandits. He says he could use some mercenaries, and the major finds the idea interesting. The major agrees, but Cheoldu warns that he'll only take the ones he wants. He approaches and shouts, asking if the bandits remember him. Then, he gives them all a chance to fight and survive the combat. He announces that he'll give a chance for a new life to whoever wins. The bandits wonder if facing him isn't the same as dying, but they decide that if they're going to die, it's better to go down fighting. Cheoldu praises their courage and admits they've got guts. He announces he will only take those left on the ground, and the major agrees. Cheoldu offers a handshake, but then pulls his hand back. The major asks about the gesture, wondering if it's a Gen Z thing. He says they'll be good friends, and Cheoldu agrees with him. Cheoldu says goodbye, calling the major by his first name and leaving him shocked. The major says he's a psychopath and has no respect for his elders. The major laughs, saying he was super cool during that conversation. He says his plan is to train them into a battle-ready tribe. The major questions this, saying they're criminals and can't be trusted. But Cheoldu reminds her that the Yonggu clan were also ex-criminals. He says trust is built by fighting side by side, and he tells Jin Tai to lead them. Cheoldu reminds him that he's the sub-leader and can handle it. He turns to the bandits, telling them they are now his new mercenaries. The men roar, accepting their new roles as mercenaries of the squad. The captain is impressed, saying he managed to unite them all very quickly. The major says that makes him dangerous and orders someone to keep an eye on him. A week later, the major is informed that Cheoldu has been reported to the government. He slams the table and asks who filed the complaint against him. The guard reveals it was Colonel Miran Jang from the local military base. The major clutches the document, saying she's still holding a grudge over what happened. The guard advises him to persuade the government, since they can't go after them. Captain Choi appears with urgent news about the mercenary unit for the major. The major takes the report, wondering if Cheoldu is already causing trouble. He opens the document, which is an observation report on the mercenaries. On the first day, the captain forced everyone to build a hut overnight. In the following days, he trained and fought against all 60 bandits by himself. The report states that he severely punished anyone who fled the harsh training. The night before the attack, he picked up his upgraded axe from the forge. Finally, he decides to use the chieftain's crest to create his group. He hits the yes button, confirming he will use the special item. The window asks for a group name, and he decides on Ironhead. The system displays the new squad's stats with bonuses to regeneration and morale. The group congratulates him, and he celebrates the creation of his own tribe. He says there's still a long way to go before they become a warrior tribe. The major is stunned, as the crest is an item only rankers can buy. The captain reveals that he got the item in a secret dungeon he found. The guard explains to the major that with the crest, the group is secure. He says that anyone who runs away will appear on the map to be tracked. The major reads the report about the mercenaries and gets curious about the attack. As night falls, the new squad stops, and Cheoldu announces they will rest. Major Lee sits by the campfire, thinking about her next confrontation with the leader. She wonders if she'll be able to defeat him, or if she even really wants to. Just then, Cheoldu approaches and asks why she isn't eating with them. He says she'll need her strength and starts to prepare her food. The major holds the bowl of food, saying the feeling is very nice. Cheoldu serves her some soup, saying she reminds him of his mother. But then he drinks the soup he just served, leaving the major furious. He tells her to be content with what she has because that's all there is. Suddenly, Cheoldu stands up with a serious expression, startling the major. He asks if she can't hear the sound, but she doesn't detect anything. Then, Cheoldu reveals it's the sound of horsemen's hooves approaching them. 3 horsemen observe a group of lizard-like creatures from a hilltop. A voice says that, as always, there's plenty of prey for them down below. The leader orders them to slaughter everyone, as they'll never match their great speed. Chunbai Kim yells for his men to show the power of the invading horsemen now. The knights and the lizard creatures prepare for the battle about to begin. The leader wonders if there's a boss around as he attacks the creatures. He yells for them to get out of the way, shouting that his spear is coming through. One of the creatures is struck by a powerful blow and defeated. The leader celebrates another victory for his group of invading knights. The man declares that victory is theirs once again, as expected. He orders his men to grab the loot and clear the area. Suddenly, a voice shouts the leader's name, grabbing his attention. Cheoldu appears, announcing he's come to put an end to the invading knights. He lands with force, preparing for combat against the enemy. The leader asks who he is. He introduces himself and compliments their horses. The man says he's heard of him and that he was just following orders. Cheoldu laughs, denying he's under anyone else's orders. He leaps, yelling that he only takes down raiders like the knight's leader. But the leader blocks the strike and denies they've stolen anything. The knight leader insists they are merely explorers, not raiders. Cheoldu grips his spear tightly, questioning if they're really just explorers. He says that what he heard was different, but he can't bring himself to believe the man. The leader realizes that Cheoldu's strength far surpasses his own. He thinks that if he keeps fighting, He could endanger his entire group. The man says he'll bet his life on it, and that killing him would be killing an innocent person. Cheoldu stares him down, wondering if he's actually telling the truth. He remembers feeling something strange when he defeated the other enemies. He decides he needs to confirm the story before making a decision. The Major appears with her group, yelling at Cheoldu not to advance alone. She says that at least he managed to capture the traitor from their group, but Cheoldu cuts her off, saying he needs to confirm something with her. He says the man denies being a raider and asks her to confess. The Major admits they aren't raiders, but insists they are dangerous. Cheoldu stares at her, not understanding why she would lie to him. The Major explains that, after all, Chunbai Kim is a traitor to the army. She explains that he and his men were once soldiers, just like them. However, he and the Major had disagreements about the future of Neo Seoul. Eventually, he left the army and formed a new group for himself. He reappeared, forming a group to challenge the army and its orders. Cheoldu questions if they aren't raiders, and the Major glares at him. She explains that he's dangerous because he knows all their military secrets. The leader states they never misused intelligence or attacked Neo Seoul. Cheoldu remarks that this Chunbai Kim is a very interesting character to him. The leader challenges him to choose whether to kill him or not right now. He asks him to spare his men if his death will clear their names. Cheoldu decides to postpone the knight's elimination for now. He says they aren't thugs, and that they shouldn't kill anyone there. So, he demands the leader tell him where to find good horses. The man laughs, saying Cheoldu will let him live in exchange for something. The leader says he'll tell him how to get a horse, but it requires special steps. He explains that taming a horse in Nova isn't as easy as on Earth. The only way is to get a pet pouch to store the creatures from there. He reveals the first ingredient is an item called red-rooted potsne. Cheoldu asks how he can get it, and the leader says it won't be easy. The scene shifts, showing a giant ogre walking through a misty forest. Cheoldu arrives at the ogre basin, remarking that he's never faced one this big. He smirks, preparing for combat against the enormous monster that awaits him. He says it was the right choice to come alone and that he's already found it. Cheoldu leaps from a cliff, saying that splitting up is faster. He says he should be the one to face the toughest monsters and attacks. The ogre retaliates, and Cheoldu notes that it's a very strong opponent. The monster roars in anger and prepares to attack with all its might. The ogre's blow is so strong, it shatters the entire area around them. Cheoldu is surprised, saying the creature is as powerful as it looks. The ogre jumps and attacks, and Cheoldu prepares to counter the blow. He grabs the guardian's staff, which was stored on his back. He uses the staff to defend himself and is thrown back by the impact. His ogre skin activates, and he notes that the blow was dangerous. He wonders how the others defeated the ogre as the monster charges forward. He says it's hard to get close, knowing one hit could be fatal. Cheoldu smirks and says it's time for a little test with his weapon. He waits for the ogre's attack, preparing for the right moment to act. He holds the staff, which begins to glow with a mysterious red energy. Cheoldu charges forward and strikes the ogre with the staff, landing a direct hit. The monster stumbles and roars in surprise at the attack it just received. He smiles, saying the weapon is much better than he imagined. The scene cuts to the blacksmith, who says his weapon is as good as new. He reveals that he made good use of the staff Cheoldu took from the knoll. The blacksmith explains that the axe is now imbued with magical energy. The blacksmith says that if he uses it right, the weapon will serve him well. Back in the fight, the ogre roars and charges forward to attack. The axe has a technique that deflects an opponent's attack. Cheoldu uses the new skill and manages to unbalance the monster with magic. He uses the rotational force to leap on top of the ogre and attack. The ogre looks up at him as he prepares for a finishing blow from above. He delivers a powerful slash that cuts through the monster's body with ease. He thanks it for the fun fight, saying the ogre skin was an easy get. Just then, the defeated ogre's body begins to emanate a strange energy. An ogre skill orb appears and he quickly grabs it. He absorbs the orb and gains the ogre's power, surpassing human limits. Jin-tae approaches with his men, announcing they've finally reached the spot. He explains that the treasure chests in the cave hold the necessary materials. One of the men asks if they should just open all the chests, but Jin-tae warns them that 9 out of 10 are mimics. The men start joking around, and Jin-tae wonders why no one is scared. He laments that someone braver should have come in his place. Cheoldu says he can hunt ogres by himself and that they should split up. Jin-tae asks if Major Lee is going into the cave, but she refuses. She says she's heading back to the village, and he realizes he's been left alone. But Cheoldu reassures him, saying he'll be fine since he's the sub-leader. He says if Jin-tae leads the team well, it'll be a piece of cake for them. Jin-tae looks toward the cave, saying Cheoldu entrusted this mission to him. He shouts that he can't let him down and that he already has a plan. He explains that the vanguard will identify the chests and the archers will attack. Jin-tae points, shouting for everyone to start putting the plan into action. The scene shifts to a beautiful sunrise over the Rocky Mountains. The knight leader orders his men to set up camp and wait. His men chat among themselves as he and another watch the sunrise. One of them asks if it's safe to hand over the horses to their group, but the leader says horses aren't something to hoard and that they'll find other ways. The man says that even with the information, it'll be hard for them to gather the materials. The leader smiles, saying he has a hunch that guy won't have any trouble. The scene changes, showing Major Lee's group approaching the knight's camp. Cheoldu and Jintay also arrive, meeting up with the group at the agreed-upon location. The leader asks if they managed to find all the materials, and Cheoldu confirms they did. Jintay proudly shows off the 4 bags of materials he collected by himself in the cave. Cheoldu then asks how many potsnes the leader managed to bring for the trade. Several bundles of potsnes fall in front of the leader, who is shocked by the amount. Cheoldu smiles and asks if the amount he brought is enough. He holds up one of the roots, saying, "So this is a potsne." A flashback shows Cheoldu standing before an ogre, saying that was easy. He spots 2 more ogres and decides to stock up on some extras while he's there. The leader asks what his secret is, and he says he doesn't have one. He's astonished to hear Cheoldu defeated all the ogres by himself. Cheoldu says his secret weapon is himself, the one and only Cheoldu Kang. Back in the present, the leader takes him to a cauldron in a cave. A system window informs them that the location is an abandoned alchemist's lab. The leader explains that information is power in an unknown world like Nova. He encourages him to try it, saying their exploration has put them ahead. Cheoldu tosses both items into the cauldron to begin the process. The system asks if he wants to combine the items, and he confirms. Smoke rises from the cauldron as the item begins to form. A notification informs him that the pet pouch has been successfully created. Cheoldu calls out to Jintay, telling them to hurry up and get the horses. The scene changes, showing a man drinking calmly from a wooden cup. Cheoldu drinks a cup of water, saying it's quite refreshing. The leader asks why he's drinking water like it's liquor. Jintay asks the man why he decided to leave the army. The leader is silent for a moment, thinking about how to answer. He explains that his path simply didn't align with the majors. Jintay asks if he has any regrets or if he misses everyone. The man denies it, saying his beliefs haven't changed and he protects his land. He explains that without power, Neo's soul would have fallen long ago. Jintay is surprised, and the leader confirms that he was responsible for the tension. Cheoldu says he's a soldier and asks if that doesn't bother him. The leader says they'll understand one day, and that he has taken the first step. He says his goodbyes, warning them they have a long journey ahead. He exits the tent and finds Major Lee waiting for him outside. The leader says he found it strange, as she should have returned to the base, but the major stares him down and says she came to ask him something. The major asks why he let her win, and he explains it was necessary. She questions him, asking if he's saying he did it for Neo's soul. She yells at him, saying he didn't have to be so reckless, but he warns her not to let her emotions control the conversation. The leader says she is the sword master of Joseon, the protector. He adds that she is the great protector of all of Neo's soul. The scene changes to the group riding across a vast green plain. The leader says this is the plain where the wild horses roam. Cheoldu asks if those are all the horses, and the leader says yes. He explains that you need to feed them potsnes and treat them very well. This way, their affinity grows, and magic turns them into pets. Jintay says they'll need a lot of potsnes, then notices Cheoldu acting strange. Cheoldu crosses his arms, saying the horses are too bland for his taste. Suddenly, he turns around at the sound of a loud neigh. The hooves of an unknown horse thunder past them at high speed. A caption reveals, "This is the iron-striped horse, the king of the plains." Jintay asks what kind of horse that is, and the leader calls it an untamable monster. Cheoldu repeats the leader's words, questioning if the monster is really untamable. The horse stops and faces the group, showing off all its imposing presence. Then he smirks and says that now he's interested in the animal. Chunbai Kim warns that it's a monster and impossible to capture, but Cheoldu charges ahead, yelling that nothing is impossible for him, leaving the other man behind. The horned horse then turns its head toward the sound he made. He keeps running, saying that a horse that likes to fight is awesome. Cheoldu then points at the animal, telling it to become his pet this instant. In response, the horse rears up on its hind legs, opening its mouth wide. The creature charges toward him. He remarks that it doesn't seem to like him. Cheoldu says to forget about affinity levels, then clenches his fist with determination. He lunges forward and strikes the horse's head, asking how it likes that. The impact of the attack whips the animal's head to the side. He seizes the opportunity to grab one of its horns, questioning the beast's gaze. With a swift move, Cheoldu jumps and mounts the animal's back. The horse starts to buck, and he says the creature is strong, asking if it's a test. But he warns that no creature beats him in strength, pressing down on the animal's head. The horse finally stops, and he says this is its last chance to obey. Cheoldu demands the animal submit, or it will taste more of his strength now. The horse then whimpers softly, one of its eyes filled with tears of fear. A system window appears, asking to register the horse for 1520 gold coins. The scene changes to Jintay, who is petting his horse and saying that it's eating. Cheoldu arrives and Jintay says his registration cost only 270 coins, surprising Chunbai. He explains that Cheoldu's is a premium monster and asks what name he'll give it. The name is set to Sonata, and Cheoldu comments on the thrill of his first ride. Then, The entire group rides together across a plain towards the sunset. Chunbai remarks that he never imagined it was possible to tame wild beasts so easily. He praises Chuldu for the surprises, and he replies that it was thanks to a trick he learned. Chunbai announces they will now part ways, and Chuldu asks about their next destination. He then reveals that his group's objective is to go beyond that border. Chuldu asks if the map is locked, and he confirms, saying there must be a way. Chunbai says his guess is they need to defeat bosses, but they haven't found one yet. Cheoldu questions if it's safe for him to share this information with his group of adventurers. Chunbai Kim asks if he looks like he cares, saying they just want to protect their land. The three horsemen ride on together, ending the serious conversation they just had. Then Cheoldu turns to leave, saying it's his time to go, but he stops his horse and invites Chunbai Kim to join his team. A strong wind blows across the desert, and the proposal hangs in the air for a moment. He declines the invitation, explaining that he already has people who depend directly on him. Cheoldu says that if he changes his mind, he just has to look for him, and the other man agrees. Chunbai's group then turns and begins to ride toward the horizon. Cheoldu also turns and tells his squad that it's time to head back to Neo Seoul. The scene shifts to a building, where a voice questions the refusal of the attack mission. Meanwhile, a drink is slowly poured into a small wooden cup. The blacksmith turns to Cheoldu and Jintai, asking them to explain why. Cheoldu replies that the target had no reason to die, and that he's not an assassin. The older man takes a sip, saying that wasn't his decision to make, but Cheoldu insists it's their decision, and asks if he would obey an order to kill children. The blacksmith questions if he's saying that Chunbai Kim is like a mere child. Cheoldu explains the guy was just an explorer, and just as innocent. The older man then sighs, admitting that the target is a decent man. He confesses he was a coward, and tried to pass on his guilt by putting Cheoldu on the mission. Cheoldu says he understands the frustration, and that he even tried to recruit the guy, but got turned down. The blacksmith remarks that he's the kind of person anyone would want on their team. Cheoldu then wonders if the offer was rejected, because he isn't a good leader. The man changes the subject, asking if he's hungry enough to eat something. He says that's absurd, as just a hot soup won't truly fill him up. The blacksmith then shouts for them to bring everything they prepared for the big dinner. At that, several servants arrive, bringing a full banquet with many different dishes to the table. He starts to pour a drink, but Jin-tae points out that they're underage. But the blacksmith reveals that they are adults now, as the new year has begun on Earth. Cheoldu refuses the drink, saying he'll save his first sip for his grandfather, but he announces he's going to devour the banquet, and the blacksmith comments on his huge appetite. In the morning, two birds fly peacefully across the sky, indicating a new day has begun. Shortly after, Jin-tae yawns, showing he's still a bit sleepy. He asks if it's safe to leave the squad, but Cheoldu says he'll beat up anyone who runs away. Jin-tae suggests it would be good to have someone to train them, and Cheoldu starts to consider the idea. Suddenly, General Park appears and greets them, calling out Cheoldu's name. He asks if that's the horse he tamed, and Cheoldu proudly introduces Sonata, but the general scolds them, saying they should have chosen much grander names. Then he announces he will go with them, as he also needs to return to planet Earth. A portal opens, and Park explains he was summoned because there's trouble on Earth. Cheoldu asks what kind of trouble it is, and he says he'll tell him since he'll find out soon enough. The scene shifts to Korea, where it's revealed the country is in utter chaos. In a broadcast, a reporter prepares to deliver breaking news to the nation. The news reports on an attempted coup in North Korea, led by a novice. Because of this, many people are now talking about the fact that the world knows about Nova. The news reports that the coup leader claims to be from a place called Nova. In the room, Colonel Miran Jang and Officer Jun Hwan-oh watch the broadcast intently. He asks to be sent to Neo Seoul, saying the world will now know about Nova, but the colonel reminds him that his mission is to capture the Novus deserters. She denies his request, stating the base can't afford to lose him and they're already busy. Miran explains that Park is supporting Cheoldu's militia, which is very dangerous. Junhwan defends them, recalling how they proved their loyalty with noble actions before. The colonel then glares at him, asking why he trusts them so much. She suggests it seems like he has some kind of personal reason for defending them. A flashback begins, where he says Cheoldu reminds him of how he used to be. A superior thanks them both for finally ensuring the safety of Nova's citizens. Jun Seop Choi jokes that he won the bet, and he complains that his friend never goes easy on him. Back in the present, she ends the discussion, saying she can't send him to Nova. Junhwan slams his hand on the table, yelling that it's always just talk and no action. He turns and asks to be left out of it, and she questions him angrily. Junhwan says the nation's power will depend on Nova, and he knows who holds the key. The scene shifts to a car on the road, where a woman celebrates her brother's return, but Cheoldu corrects her, telling her to call him leader, since he's younger. Jin-tae asks how they knew, and the young man explains they were waiting for them at the portal. The driver laughs and says he's going to love the surprise for his new business. When they arrive, a man bows and welcomes the boss. Cheoldu smiles, commenting that he really likes the sound of the word boss. He then questions the name, saying it sounds like something a gangster would use and it's too close to home. A drawing shows the company right next to his house, and the man asks if he doesn't like it. Cheoldu explains that his grandfather will hate it, as he can't stand gangsters at all. He praises the good work, and the man bows, thanking his boss for his trust. Just then, someone arrives and loudly asks what's going on. It's Junhwan-oh, who glares at him and asks if he's become a gangster. Cheoldu recognizes him and asks about his arm, and he replies that it's already healed. The soldier questions if he's starting a gang, and Cheoldu complains about the misunderstanding. Cheoldu explains it's not a gang, but a company to help with Nova's operations. The soldier is about to make a proposal, but Cheoldu beats him to it and invites him in. He extends his hand, and Junhwan says he came to see if he can entrust his future to him. The two then shake hands firmly, sealing the deal they've just made. Junhwan stares at him seriously, maintaining the firm handshake. Cheoldu says he needs someone to train the personnel, and the soldier questions the offer. He explains that he saw how he fights, and Junhwan accepts the position of trainer. Cheoldu then smiles and introduces himself to his new member as the leader of the mercenaries. The soldier says his goodbyes, stating he'll meet him in Neo-Seoul, and turns to leave. The scene changes to his house, where a pot of stew is simmering on the stove. Cheoldu's grandfather serves the food, asking why they don't go somewhere safe. Cheoldu leans over the table, staring intently at the large pot of hot food. Jin-tae explains that it's New Year's, and a soldier friend said there's no risk. He's shocked by the size of the pot, saying he can't eat that much. His grandfather tells him to look to his side, as Cheoldu is already digging into the stew. The grandfather asks why he wants to drink, questioning if he's an adult now. Cheoldu says his first drink has to be with him, as it's like a rite of passage. A flashback begins, showing the coming-of-age ceremony for barbarians at 18 years old. The leader explains that the marks on their bodies will become a symbol of pride. Back in the present, he reflects that this alone won't make him a warrior. He then holds the small cup of liquor on the table in front of him, but his grandfather scolds him, yelling for him to use both hands to hold it. Cheoldu realizes the mistake he made and says it was an unintentional slip-up. The old man teaches him to turn his body as a sign of respect, and he agrees. He asks if Jin-tae isn't going home, and he says his parents are happy without him. Cheoldu jokes, asking if he wants him to take care of them, and Jin-tae calls him a lunatic. The grandfather offers a drink to Jin-tae, who thanks them for taking him in. He smiles, saying that since he's Cheoldu's friend, he's family now too. The three of them toast, and Cheoldu thanks his grandfather for raising him so well. A blue sky appears, indicating that a new, peaceful day has finally begun for everyone. Jin-tae covers his mouth with his hand, complaining that he ate too much the night before. Cheoldu asks if he's okay, but he says he needs to get back to Nova soon. Arriving at the portal, Cheoldu comments that there are lots of people and soldiers everywhere. Jin-tae explains that everyone is there for the exam now that it's become official. Cheoldu says his grandfather needs to take the exam, but Jin-tae is worried about his age. He then sighs, saying there must be a way to resolve this situation. The scene changes, and General Park asks if he wants to form an official alliance. He explains that with the border open, the competition between nations is heating up. Park shows a document saying he convinced the higher-ups to form an alliance with them. Cheoldu moves to sign and says he trusts his friend, as he wouldn't deceive him. The general thanks him for his trust, but warns that leadership on the frontier won't be easy. He mentions that Japan, the closest country, is ahead of them. Cheoldu says they need to speed things up and might have to defeat the field bosses. General Park stares at him, questioning what he meant by field boss. Cheoldu gets excited and asks if he knows about the Cyclops field bosses. The general says they've already finished locating the monster, thanks to his men. Cheoldu gets excited again and asks if his next mission will be a field boss hunt. Then the general leans in and asks if he's ready to go all out. He extends his hand, and Cheoldu replies that he's absolutely ready for whatever comes. He grabs the general's hand, yelling that he's going to cut the Cyclops' head off. The scene cuts to a dark place, where a giant eye made of stone opens. Cheoldu announces that Junhwan will be the new sub-leader, in charge of the unit's operations. Everyone welcomes him, and some celebrate, thinking they've escaped the brutal training. Junhwan introduces himself to the troop, saying he hopes they can work well together. Then Cheoldu tells Jin-tae to continue managing internal affairs, and he agrees with his leader. The new sub-leader asks what the first priority is for their team's operations, but Cheoldu replies that he has to figure it out for himself, leaving the other man completely shocked. He confirms he doesn't have a plan, and just tells the soldier to do his job. Junhwan decides he will start by reorganizing the structure of all units in the group. He yells that they will begin intensive training to hunt the field boss. The mercenaries realize their situation has just gotten even worse than before. The scene shifts to a street at night in the city of Osaka, Japan. A young man looks at his phone, complaining that he can't take having so many enemies around anymore. Suddenly, a woman bumps into him while being attacked by a man from behind. He complains that she can't just run off, but the woman continues to flee in desperation. Several people run down the street in a panic, screaming for help as they flee from something. The young man shouts for everyone to run for their lives, warning that they are coming. Suddenly, several green projectiles start streaking across the night sky of the city. A horde of goblins charges toward the people, screaming that they're coming to get them. The young man finds himself surrounded by the creatures in the middle of the street, unable to understand the situation. Just then, system windows appear for everyone, and he wonders what they are. The window announces the final escape mission, and the scene cuts to 5 days later. General Park discovers that a portal with goblins has opened in the Osaka area. He wonders if this is the end, but his subordinate says that Japan isn't sharing information. The general becomes thoughtful, tapping his finger on the desk as he processes the new information. His subordinate suggests they likely see the portal as a major opportunity for growth. Park explains that nations have been competing to colonize Nova since the apocalypse began. He continues, saying that a portal in Japan makes training new Novus much easier. The officer concludes that their number of recruits will skyrocket, accelerating colonization. But the real question, according to the general, is how they managed to open that portal. Suddenly, he seems to have a revelation about the situation and stops talking. The general stands up and asks about the current status of Cheoldu's mercenaries. The group of mercenaries marches through the night, approaching their final destination. One of the soldiers stumbles, and Junhwan yells at him to stay in line. The others comment that the new sub-leader is much crueler than the original leader. Jun Seop Choi comments on the discipline, and Junhwan tells him to just use his name. His friend asks why he came back, and he replies that his mission wasn't fun. He asks if he joined because of the general's role-playing, and Junhwan confirms it. His partner asks how life is, and he says he had to bring some order to the unit. Junhwan admits he's having fun, and his friend jokes that he's finally grown up. He then looks toward Cheoldu, who is leading the group up ahead. Junseop says that maybe it's all thanks to their leader being such a great guy. Cheoldu raises his hand and yells for everyone to stop, announcing they'll make camp there. The camp is set up quickly, with several tents and a campfire in the center. They look at a map, and one of them says they'll reach the target before dawn. Junseop advises that this is a good time for them to come up with a strategy of attack. He explains that defeating the boss is like a dungeon raid in a game. The forest is divided into 2 sections, with ogres and gnolls guarding each part. Cheoldu suggests a direct attack, but Junseop refuses, saying there are over 100 gnolls. He reveals that as soon as they enter the forest, a countdown starts immediately. So Cheoldu asks if they have a time limit to finish off the enemies. Junseop confirms, explaining that they were teleported out when time ran out during the patrol. He says he'll need to think of a quick and efficient plan to reach the boss. Meanwhile, his teammates just wait to receive orders from their great leader. They all gather and affirm that they will follow his leadership to the end. Cheoldu then smiles and says it's time for them to hunt some cyclopes. The boss hunt event is initiated, and the 30-minute countdown begins. Cheoldu's hand moves a chess piece, strategically starting the battle. The first part of the plan begins with Jin-tae leading an ambush on the left flank. One of the mercenaries lands a blow, shouting that the forest is their territory. But Cheoldu knows the gnolls will keep coming relentlessly, like rabid dogs. Jin-tae then smiles and tells his group that it's time. He turns and shouts for everyone to fall back, causing the monsters to charge forward. Yongsu's mobile unit prepares to attack as soon as the gnolls are distracted. Yongsu charges forward, cutting down enemies, and remarks that it feels like he's back in the lead. The group reaches the forest entrance, and Cheoldu warns them that the ogres are there. He asks if they can handle it, and the two of them get ready to fight the monsters. The 2 rankers then advance, beginning to engage the ogres to distract them. Meanwhile, Cheoldu runs through the gorge, saying there are 20 minutes left to the target. He shouts for Sonata to go faster, and a running skill is activated. Cheoldu passes an ogre and cuts it down, yelling that no one can stop him. He keeps running, saying that according to the plan, he should find the Cyclops in time. Sonata brakes sharply upon arriving, and Cheoldu tells the horse to calm down. He then dismounts the animal and looks around, commenting that he doesn't see the boss. Cheoldu approaches the tree and wonders if this place could be sacred ground. The tree begins to emit a light, and a system window appears before him. The ground starts to shake, and Cheoldu holds onto the tree to keep from falling. Then, a circular formation appears in the sky, right above the large yellow tree. From within it, a giant stone fist slowly begins to emerge in his direction. The field boss reveals itself, and a window identifies it as the Guardian Cyclops. Cheoldu looks up and comments in astonishment at how gigantic the monster is. The Cyclops lets out a roar and raises its axe, preparing to attack the intruder. It then slams the weapon into the ground, opening a huge crack that spreads quickly. Cheoldu watches, realizing the creature's attack range is very dangerous. Then, the stone monster throws its axe at him with impressive force, but he manages to defend himself, using his own weapon to parry the Cyclops' strike. Cheoldu struggles to hold back the impact of the axe, yelling as he parries the attack. The 2 weapons clash with a massive impact, and he continues to defend himself. The Cyclops just watches the result of its attack, gripping the handle of its weapon. Cheoldu realizes that his parries aren't even budging the giant monster. He then concludes that fighting from a distance won't work against this type of enemy. He decides he'll get closer to attack the giant stone creature's legs. Cheoldu leaps and executes an X-shaped cut on the huge Cyclops' leg. After the attack, the creature remains standing, looking at where the blow landed. The cut resulted in just a scratch, and he wonders how that's possible. He concludes that the monster's size prevents it from taking proper damage. He then smirks, saying that if that's the case, he has a new plan. Cheoldu starts attacking the monster's legs, shouting that it's time for infinite strikes. He says it's impossible to hit him up close with a weapon that long. The Cyclops then roars and prepares to attack with its long-range weapon, but he parries a direct blow from the monster's fist, defending against the impact. The Cyclops' eye darts around, trying to follow the blows landing on its legs. Cheoldu shouts for it to take that, and asks if it likes his lumberjack skills. In response to the continuous attacks, the stone monster lets out a great roar. Then, the Cyclops' eye stops moving and focuses directly on him on the ground. Cheoldu is surprised by the change and wonders what's happening to the monster. An attack shoots out from the monster's eye, hitting Cheoldu head-on with great force. The impact of the attack throws him far away, kicking up a lot of dust. The Cyclops lets out a great roar, having landed its powerful ranged attack. Lying on the ground, he says the creature was hiding so much power and that he can't block it. A window announces that 5 minutes remain, and he says it'll be tough to finish. His companions arrive, shouting that they heard the explosions and asking if he's okay. Cheoldu yells for them to get out, as the Cyclops fires a blast from its eye. They barely dodge, and one of them wonders what that strange attack is. He says they arrived just in time, and one of them asks what he wants. Cheoldu tells them to attack the scratch on its leg while he distracts the huge monster. He jumps to dodge a strike from the Cyclops, avoiding the attack. He realizes the monster's attack isn't invincible, even though it's very dangerous. Then he dodges another attack and notices the creature fires at intervals. He charges forward, shouting that the monster is destroying the forest it's supposed to protect. The Cyclops roars as the mission timer continues to tick down quickly for all of them. He realizes he needs to end the fight, so he doesn't tire himself out for nothing. The two swordsmen then attack the monster's legs with a strong, coordinated strike. They manage to cut the Cyclops' legs and shout that the way is clear. Cheoldu praises their perfect timing as the monster loses its balance from the attack. With little time left, he calls for Sonata, who appears to help her master. Cheoldu concentrates, saying there's only one way to finish this beast. The reflection of a young Aiden then appears in his eye, triggering a memory. The scene changes to a forest, where Aiden walks alone among the trees. Text reveals that this was the place where his parents died a long time ago. The boy holds out his hand as words of regret and weakness appear around him. His hands hold ashes, with the words rage and longing appearing soon after. Aiden then clenches his fist tightly, saying he can't go on like this anymore. Images of his friends and his grandfather show that he has new responsibilities. He picks up a branch, saying it's time to overcome the pain and grow. The boy gets ready to fight, declaring he'll do it to protect his people. Back in the present, Cheoldu closes his eyes, concentrating for the final attack. He raises his axe, saying he realized a truth through his younger self. Sonata runs toward him, and he gets ready to quickly mount the horse. He gets on Sonata, and they charge forward with only 10 seconds left on the clock. Cheoldu climbs onto the monster, focusing all his power into a single point for the attack. He uses the ogre's power, preparing his axe for the final blow against the creature. The monster's eye begins to react, showing some cracks on its stone surface. Cheoldu yells, asking where the Cyclops is looking at this decisive moment in the fight. He then concentrates his power, bringing his weapon down to finish the monster once and for all. The blow lands squarely on the top of the Cyclops' head with a direct hit. With the attack, the monster's large stone eye begins to crack completely. The creature's head explodes, and the mission timer runs out at the same instant. A window announces that he has defeated the Cyclops, and a light descends upon the forest. The tree evolves into the Tree of Protection, bringing benefits to the entire region. Jintai is shocked and celebrates, saying they actually pulled off that impossible feat. Everyone celebrates the completed mission, and Cheoldu says the barrier was broken as expected. He also receives a halberd as a reward, showing the new item to his companions. Then, a new exploration quest appears, with the objective of taming a mount. Cheoldu complains that now everyone will know how to tame horses, and Jintai understands the raiders' trick. He wants to turn the squad into a cavalry, but Junhwan says they need tactical variety. Cheoldu turns away, saying the reward seems weak after so much hard work. Suddenly, an intense light shines from the tree, and everyone looks at the phenomenon in surprise. A portal opens at its base, and Jintai asks if another Cyclops is going to appear. Then, a small green foot steps out of the portal that appeared before them. A goblin merchant steps out, telling them to come closer and make their choice of items. Cheoldu and Jintai recognize him, realizing it's the famous goblin merchant that has appeared. The scene shows the government headquarters, where the president is called to a meeting. An official reports that Japan will share portal data for an astronomical price. The president then orders them to prepare for negotiations immediately, as they can't afford any delays. But the official warns that they can't, because the Japanese have already left. He slams his fist on the table in fury upon learning that Korea was excluded from the negotiations. The subordinate explains that discussions about Korea are only scheduled to begin in the summer. The president yells that this is equivalent to 3 years in Nova's world time. He grits his teeth, saying they're taking advantage of their lead in the race for power. At that moment, the official's phone starts vibrating with new messages appearing on the screen. The official apologizes for the interruption, but the president allows him to check his device. He's startled as he looks at the screen while trying to turn off his phone. The man shouts that it's happening, but specifies it's the portal, not a headache. He shows his phone announcing that a portal has opened in Paju, with goblins already sighted. Then his tone shifts, noting that Paju is far too close to the capital. The president agrees to the meeting and says he has one more thing to say. The president then orders them to contact Major General Junpil Park and bring him in immediately. Elsewhere, Chunbai Kim sees a message saying the protective barrier has been lifted. One of his men shouts that the fog is clearing because someone has defeated the boss. The captain smiles at his subordinate and states that he thinks he knows who it was. He then charges forward on his horse, saying that Choldu Kang's hunt was a success. The scene shifts to Neo Seoul, where Junpil Park celebrates their victory over the Cyclops. He reads the system message and deduces that a portal must have opened. He gets up in a hurry, but an official rushes in, calling him governor. Junpil Park asks if he saw the news about Cheoldu, but the official urgently cuts him off. He informs him that the president has summoned him because of the new portal that opened in Paju. The general asks for the fastest portal to Seoul, but then says he was just kidding. Meanwhile, a goblin appears and invites people to come closer to his shop. He displays a list of items, asking them to make their choices quickly. Choldu Kang looks at the scrolls on the screen and decides to tap one of the available options. The screen displays the description of a scroll that increases the limit of his attributes. He buys several items, saying that his growth will now be limitless and a lot of fun. His finger presses the button, and a message confirms the purchase was successful. A companion suggests Cheoldu take the stones, as he can now become a ranker. He asks what the advantage is, and his friend reveals his own rank is a secret. Cheoldu then asks how he knows his rank if he's never competed against other people. The colleague explains that the system ranks you automatically once you become a ranker. He complains about not knowing this sooner and picks up one of the skill stones. Then he uses all the stones at once, commenting that the place looks cool. His stamina reaches 50, and the screen announces that he will now be transported. He shouts excitedly, saying it's time to go check out this new place right away. The scene changes to a desert, where he wonders if this is the fields. A system screen appears with a stamina test, telling him to run with all his might. The ground in front of him suddenly crumbles, revealing a very deep chasm. A bridge appears, and as he steps onto it, his current speed is displayed in a window. He stretches, saying he just has to run, which seems easier than he thought. He places his hands on the ground, preparing to start the test. Then he bolts across the bridge, shouting that simple is what he does best. Choldu keeps running, saying he'll continue until his lungs can't take it anymore. The scene shifts to the office of the Japanese Prime Minister in another country. An official reports that the task force has been sent to eliminate the next boss. The Prime Minister orders them to increase the fee on portal information 5-fold. Just then, a subordinate bursts into the room, shouting that he has very urgent news. He questions the unannounced entry, but the man insists that he needs to see this. The man shows his phone, announcing that a portal has just opened in Korea. On the screen, a Korean official announces the sharing of information through global cooperation. His fist trembles on the table as he says they're making the information public. He stands up furiously, ordering them to find out who defeated the field boss immediately. Then he sits back down, saying they tried to maintain their advantage, but now there's a competitor. The Korean military officer declares the era of exploration, and the minister calls this an unforeseen event. Back at the Korean government headquarters, applause is heard from inside the building. The president praises Major General Park's remarkable feat, and Park thanks him for the recognition. He invites him to form a new army, but the general refuses the responsibility. The president then says that Neo Seoul is established, and that others can take care of it. He insists that the nation needs his experience in a much greater capacity now. At this, the general asks to be sent to Cheongju, leaving the president a bit confused. He explains that he wants to turn the location into a strategic hub for the portal network. The president agrees with the plan, saying he's perfect for the task. But he reconsiders, stating that his contributions deserve a much better title. He promotes him, placing the Cheongju portal in the hands of the new lieutenant general. The scene returns to Cheoldu, where the screen shows that the scoring is complete. Another window shows him in first place in the stamina ranking, and he celebrates. He receives 25 shot points and is transported back. His companions see him returning and call his name as he approaches. They run over and ask for his rank, and Cheoldu replies that he obviously got first place. His friend is astonished, and he confirms that he earned 25 shop points. The friend says his score is triple his own, but Cheoldu says he just expanded his inventory. He asks if anyone has become a ranker in all attributes, and his colleague says he doesn't know of any. Cheoldu decides he'll try to be the first, and his friend asks what the plan is. He confirms they have supplies and a new mission to tame a mount. Then one of the men asks Junhwan and the others to go look for some horses. But Cheoldu already returns with a horse, and the others ask about their own mounts. He looks at the horse, saying it's now time to see what awaits them. The scene then focuses on a landscape of cold, snow-covered mountains. A few days later, Junpil Park says goodbye to his men in front of a portal. He looks at the gate of the barracks, telling himself that he's really leaving. An officer confirms that Lieutenant Colonel Kim took care of everything, but the general is doubtful. Then he says goodbye to the lieutenant, asking him to guide the new commander. The man grumbles that the general won't be around to see what happens. Just then, someone rushes toward the lieutenant colonel, who has his back turned. A woman slams her shoulder hard into his, completely knocking him off balance. The impact throws the man hard to the ground. He falls without any time to react. She turns and apologizes, saying she didn't see him in her way. The general approaches, and she asks why he's transferring so suddenly. Major Lee then asks to go with him, but he immediately denies her request. He explains that she is needed to keep Neo Soul strong, and that he's no longer in command. She accepts his decision and then asks who the new commander will be. Suddenly, the portal behind them begins to glow brightly before opening. A muscular man steps out of the portal, saying that this place is his new Neo Soul. The officers stare at the newcomer in surprise, not knowing what to say or do. General Wonjin Lim shouts that the place is much worse than he imagined. The scene shifts to Cheoldu, who is riding with his group into a completely new area. They cross a border, and a system message announces they have left region C442. They arrive in a snowy area, and his friend comments that this is the third region. Cheoldu observes the different season, while his companion says he's freezing to death. His friend recalls the first dry place and the second, which was nothing but rain. He concludes that each zone has its own quirks, with different climates and monsters. Cheoldu then says the region is vast, and they might need to stop their exploration here. His colleague suggests they could find a portal and asks what he's doing. He rubs his hands on his body and asks what it looks like he's doing. Cheoldu clasps his hands tightly and flexes all the muscles in his chest and arms. His friend laughs, saying the ogre skin doesn't seem to help much with the cold. So he decides to head back, and his companion agrees to bring exploration gear next time. The friend says he'll ask General Junpil to provide them with winter supplies. The scene shifts to Neo Seoul, showing the daily routine of the village's inhabitants. Major Lee walks through the city, where workers are carrying materials everywhere. Only 10 days have passed since the general's departure, but many things have already changed. An officer orders them to move the materials to the backyard where the golf course will be. The workers complain about the low wages, saying things were better under the old governor. A citizen argues about the price with a vendor, who says he has many mouths to feed. Meanwhile, they are turning Neo Seoul into a luxury fortress for themselves. An officer runs up to Major Lee, calling her name with great urgency. He informs her that Cheoldu Kang's mercenaries have just returned, and she stares at him. The scene shifts to Cheoldu, riding with his group back to the village. He yells in a rage, desperately asking where the house they had built is. He then demands they bring him General Junpil, but someone suddenly interrupts him. Major Lee approaches and explains that the general was transferred and had to leave. Cheoldu turns in surprise and asks who is responsible for this whole mess. She says it was the new commander, and adds that he was waiting for Cheoldu. Cheoldu grinds his teeth in anger, saying that Wonjin Lim dared to mess with their house. He calls all units, and his group of mercenaries advances on horseback in formation. He then orders everyone to prepare to march straight to the government building. His men shout to take back what's theirs and show them what they're made of. Meanwhile, the general asks the colonel if the preparations to face Cheoldu are ready. The colonel reports that there are over 600 men hidden throughout the village. The general then says they must force him to join them, if necessary. He remarks that it's time to teach that arrogant 20-year-old kid a lesson. Suddenly, everything starts to shake, and the general wonders if it's an earthquake. But the colonel looks outside and tells his superior it's not an earthquake. He shouts that it's the mercenaries, advancing at high speed towards them. The group stops in front of the gate, facing the new commander and all his soldiers. The general comments on their flashy return and says he's happy to meet him. Cheoldu glares at him angrily and asks if he was the one who demolished his house. The colonel interrupts, telling him to show respect for the supreme commander of Nova's forces. He grabs the colonel's face, saying that's not what he asked. The colonel tries to speak but can't because of the tight grip on his face. Then the general starts to laugh, asking if he got angry over a little house. Cheoldu throws the colonel aside and demands the general stop laughing and explain himself. He says the territory is his now, and to use it, you have to pay. The general continues, stating he just cleared everything as part of his job as commander. But Cheoldu replies that the land was a gift, so it makes no sense to pay. He reinforces that Neo Seoul now belongs to him, so his rules are the ones that count. The general stares at Choldu with a wide grin, watching the mercenary's reaction. He then invites him to join his side, promising him all the land he wants. Choldu repeats the general's words, questioning if he's offering him free land. At that, he yells at the general to stop talking and give back what's theirs. The general also becomes furious and says if that's how he wants to play. He declares the mercenaries rebels, and archers appear and ready their bows on the roof. The general then turns to his troops, who completely surround Cheoldu's group. He gives the final order to annihilate all the mercenaries standing before them. The general orders his troops to prepare for the imminent attack against the mercenaries. Then he gives the final command for all his men to annihilate the group. Just then, Cheoldu's men say they were hidden and ready for a fight. But Cheoldu walks alone towards the army, leaving his confused companions behind. The general shouts that he's coming and tells his soldiers to prepare for battle. One of the soldiers scoffs at them, saying a bunch of mercenaries won't do a thing. Cheoldu glares at him intensely and orders him to stop what he's doing right now. He then warns that if they draw their weapons, everyone there is completely dead. The general calls his soldiers cowards, saying that Cheoldu is obviously just bluffing. His men shout his name, worried about the situation unfolding before them. Two of them hold him back, telling him to stop because the situation is about to get out of control. The general is surprised to see Cheoldu's own men trying to hold him back from the fight. He then calls for Major Lee and asks if she is the swordmaster. He orders her to defeat Cheoldu in exchange for a promotion, but she refuses. The general grinds his teeth in pure rage, frustrated by her response. The general grabs her forcefully, yelling that it's a direct order, but she smiles, saying he's even worse than she had imagined. He becomes furious and threatens to show her what real evil looks like now. Then the general lunges forward with an open hand to strike Major Lee head on. Just then, a hand suddenly appears and grabs his wrist, stopping his attack. Cheoldu holds him tightly and asks if he's new to the world of Nova. One of the mercenaries explains that they don't threaten civilians or pick fights for no reason, but he warns they show no mercy to those who challenge them, and then breaks his wrist. He then turns and asks the soldiers if they're sure they want to fight. One of the general's soldiers drops his weapon to the ground and surrenders immediately. The others follow, saying they won't fight against the hero of Neo's soul. The archers also refuse to fight, saying they'd rather join the mercenaries. Major Lee watches the whole situation unfold, surprised by what's happening. The citizens begin to shout in support, saying they hate the new commander, Wenjin Lim. The overwhelming power of Cheoldu Kang was what united everyone in that place. Major Lee looks to the side and begins to say that Cheoldu Kang is someone. The general yells at her, asking what she's doing and ordering her to attack now. At that moment, her hand tightens firmly around the hilt of her long battle sword. She draws her sword and tells the captain that things have come to this. Then Major Lee charges forward at an impressive speed towards all of them. She kneels before him and says that from now on, her sword is his. One of the men says that the Neo soul he knew no longer exists for him. She continues, saying that with Cheoldu Kang, she can see a future ahead. The woman states she sees a bright future that will illuminate the entire world of Nova. Cheoldu smiles and says that an excellent swordswoman like her is always welcome in the group. The general yells at Major Lee, asking what she thinks she's doing. She then asks for her discharge papers, and he asks under whose authority she would leave. She points to Cheoldu and tells him to take up any problems with her new boss. Cheoldu says they need to discuss damages, but the general taunts him about the army. He grabs the general's head, admitting he's tempted to cut it off right now. He pulls his hair, saying he'll settle for compensation for the land. Then he smiles and tells them not to forget the reward for the old general's mission. The scene changes to a tavern, where the mercenaries celebrate their victory with drinks and laughter. Cheoldu comments on Junpil, and a companion asks what the plans are for the group. Jintai suggests they go to Cheongju, since they were already planning to go back there someday. He smiles, saying there are field bosses and many unexplored rewards there. Jinte asks if everyone agrees with the plan, and Major Lee nods in agreement. One of the men asks Cheoldu why he's making that face, if he has something to say. She explains that she's not sure about leaving the others behind, as Choi's mother is sick. She says he needs access to the hospital and the steady income from the army. Jinte says he didn't know about the situation, and Cheoldu becomes thoughtful for a moment. Then he says he has an idea and asks Jinte to visit the five brothers. Elsewhere, a wooden door slowly opens in one of the rooms. Captain Choi and his partner enter, and someone asks how their meeting went. He informs them that he was told he can't go, and that orders are orders. Jinte calls out to Junseop and Youngsu, who turn to him, slightly surprised. Then, Cheoldu approaches, and the captain asks what he's doing in this place. He faces the two with a smile and replies, asking what else he would be doing. The scene changes, and he says he's there to take both of them with him now. The captain says it's sudden and that Youngsu can go, but he can't. Cheoldu guarantees his family's safety, and the man asks what he means. He explains about his company, but Junseop is suspicious, and asks if it's a gang. Then he clarifies that it's an operation to protect and care for the squad's families. The two get excited, saying that Cheoldu always thinks 5 steps ahead of everyone. He extends a hand, and invites them to go to Cheongju Nova with him. A poster is nailed to the village wall as he says everyone is invited. The announcement recruits citizens to migrate, offering transport and meals for anyone who is dissatisfied. Days later, at the Paju portal, a crowd prepares for the long journey. Cheoldu observes the place, commenting that it's changed a lot since the official announcement about Nova. Suddenly, a military jeep stops abruptly right in front of him, startling him a bit. Second Lieutenant Seunga Choi greets him, saying it's a surprise to find him there. When he doesn't recognize her, she reminds him that she was with Officer Junwan Oh the other time. He asks why she approached him, and the officer reveals she has a message from the general. She explains that she was transferred to the Cheongju unit and has orders from the general. The lieutenant reveals that the general's order is to escort him to Cheongju Nova. Cheoldu smiles, saying it looks like they're thinking the same thing now. He then turns to leave, but the lieutenant asks if he won't join them. He explains the group is too big, and their bus finally arrives. A man gets off and greets the boss, asking if he's been well lately. Someone reminds him they aren't a gang, which leaves the lieutenant quite surprised. The man says he prepared the buses, and Jin-tae explains he just passed on the message. Cheoldu notes that not many people came, and Jin-tae agrees with his observation. He says they need to respect their choices, as starting over in a remote place is hard. But Cheoldu says he recruited key people, like a cook and a master blacksmith. Then he says goodbye to the lieutenant, letting her know Junpil is waiting for them there. The buses depart, and he announces they need to stop for some snacks on the way. Upon reaching their destination, Cheoldu is impressed by what he sees before him. He and Jin-tae look at the village, and his friend comments on how much the place has evolved. Jin-tae says the development was insane, considering how little time has passed. He notices their clothes, saying the place looks like another Neo-Seoul with the general around. General Junpil runs up and shouts excitedly, calling for Cheoldu to welcome him to the new village. He says he was worried, but Cheoldu replies that transferring soldiers is normal. Cheoldu says he nearly crushed the replacement, and Junpil shakes his hand, welcoming him. Then he announces he brought some gifts, leaving General Junpil a little curious. From a portal, the merchants of Neo-Seoul emerge, completely surprising the former general. He explains that to build a city, a market is necessary to sustain it. The citizens greet the general, who thanks Cheoldu for bringing the people they needed. Junpil asks how he can repay him, but Cheoldu says it's a thank you for the borrowed men. Suddenly, another portal opens, and someone announces they've finally reached their destination. Major Lee and the captain step out of the portal, greeting General Junpil cheerfully. Cheoldu explains that they also left the army to help with Nova's development. The general stares at them, processing the news that they decided to leave the military. He then starts to laugh, saying it was a good choice, and he's happy to see them. Junpil invites everyone to settle in and then have a meal together in the village. The group then walks through the streets of the new city to settle into their homes. Cheoldu asks what kind of place this is, and the general says he was waiting for that. He then introduces the new city, telling everyone to welcome Hanyang. The general explains that the community is based on agriculture to feed future residents. They built earthen fortresses to protect themselves from monster attacks in the region, and they're developing roads to facilitate trade and become a commercial hub. Cheoldu is surprised, and Junpil explains that the secret was finding rice seedlings. He grabs him excitedly, asking if he'll be able to eat soup with real rice. The general holds him back, saying there's something more important he needs to tell him. Then he faces the group and asks what they think about taking on a hidden dungeon. Cheoldu and his group look at each other, and he repeats about the hidden dungeon he found. The scene shows the city's watchtower, a symbol of protection and observation. He says they found something extraordinary, and Cheoldu wonders what it could be. Junpil reveals it's a teleportation circle that will revolutionize transportation in Nova. He explains that a guard stumbled upon it during a night patrol in the area. Cheoldu comments that the area around the circle is going to become super valuable now. Junpil explains that the path is blocked by a dungeon, making access nearly impossible. He admits his forces lack the power, and that the mercenaries' help would be useful. Then, the general remembers that his troops still need a base of operations. He offers the location of the circle if Cheoldu can clear the dungeon first. The scene shifts to the Count's cursed castle, showing the details of the new mission. Cheoldu comments on the castle, but Jin-tae warns that the place has a creepy vibe. He says that anyone who's too scared can just stay behind. Then he holds his axe, saying that goes for those who are truly afraid. The men get scared and shout that they are all ready to enter the castle. Cheoldu orders everyone to prepare their weapons and advance straight to the entrance. The entire group charges on horseback at high speed towards the castle gate. Suddenly, an energy arrow flies past them at incredible speed. The projectile hits the ground right in front of one of the horses, startling it. Then several arrows rain down, and someone yells that they've sealed off their movements with the horses. Cheoldu realizes the attack is coming from higher positions, from way up high. Skeleton archers appear on the walls, and breaking through the defense won't be easy now. Major Lee orders the officers to regroup the squad and wait for her signal. One of the men shouts to the captain, desperately asking what their plan is. But Cheoldu laughs, saying he'll just smash the castle gates down himself. He grins as a shower of energy arrows falls towards him from the sky. Then he yells for his horse, Sonata, to charge with everything he's got. He dodges the arrows and advances with his horse at high speed toward the gate. The skeleton archers are startled to see him approaching so quickly and fearlessly. He tells Sonata to go all out and slam into the gate with full force. The horse uses a skill and hits the gate, shattering it on impact. The skeletons are startled by the invasion and rush to attack Cheoldu's group. He says that now all eyes are on him as the enemies advance. He leaps from his horse and attacks one of the skeletons, cutting it down in its path. Then he grabs another enemy with his hand, which tries to break free from his grip. He delivers a powerful headbutt to the skeleton, crushing the monster's skull with the blow. Cheoldu screams his war cry as the skeleton crumbles before him. General Wonjin Lim and his knights watch an explosion at the castle gate from a distance. Then, one of the men shouts that they've stopped firing and orders the cavalry to advance. Inside, Cheoldu Kang was already in combat, taking out several skeletons with his weapon. He wonders if there isn't a stronger opponent, since he can finish them all by himself. Suddenly, a giant foot in a metal boot stomps heavily on the ground. Cheoldu looks up to face a huge armored knight that appears before him. He blocks the enemy's attack, stating that the knight doesn't stand a chance. Cheoldu then asks if the knight thinks that's enough to take him down, but the knight continues its attack as Cheoldu says it's nothing compared to the Cyclops. He then plants his feet on the ground, preparing for a powerful counterattack. Cheoldu spins his weapon and yells that his opponent is just too boring. With a swift move, he manages to slice off the head of the large armored knight. The enemy's head flies through the air before completely disintegrating on its way. The headless body of the knight falls to the ground right in front of Cheoldu. He then comments that it was boring, but at least the job is done. He approaches the fallen body and wonders why no items are dropping. In the distance, one of his men shouts in concern, asking if the captain is okay. Cheoldu replies that he's fine, and jokes that they showed up after it was all over. Then he starts giving orders, but stops when he sees Jintae Kim step back in fear. Suddenly, Jintae yells for Cheoldu to get down as an attack flies past him. The knight's fallen body begins to rise on its own again. The creature attacks and strikes Cheoldu in the back, making his men scream his name. He's surprised, saying he can't believe the enemy wasn't dead. Cheoldu then admits he let his guard down as the knight prepares for another blow. At that moment, Major Yunyoung Lee quickly draws her sword to join the fight. She prepares and yells to focus her mana and use maximum speed. Then, the Major charges forward and unleashes a flurry of blows against the armor. Her attacks slash the armored knight in several places at once. The enemy finally falls to pieces, and she asks if the captain is okay. But Cheoldu ignores her and warns that it's not dead, leaving the Major confused. Cheoldu shouts that those things aren't dead as the enemies rise again. The Major says it's impossible, but he explains that they are undead controlled by black magic. Cheoldu concludes they need to kill the Count who controls the place to finish them off. He asks the Major and the officers to hold off the enemies, buying as much time as possible. But Major Eun-young stops him and asks him to wait while she gets an item. She then tells him to treat his wounds before he goes and starts bandaging him. Once bandaged, he announces he's going to cut the guy's head off and tells the mercenaries to hang in there. Upon entering the castle, he covers his nose and complains about a rotten smell in the air. Cheoldu wonders if the smell is coming from the corpse golem that appears before him. He says he's finally found something creative, as he was about to die of boredom in there. The golem charges straight at Cheoldu, who gets into a battle stance. He then unleashes a powerful horizontal strike that slices the monster's abdomen in half. The gash in the golem's body quickly begins to regenerate and close on its own. Cheoldu gets annoyed with the immortal Dullahan and now a regenerating monster. So he says it's time for a little experiment and draws a magic axe. He challenges the monster, telling it to see if its regeneration can keep up with his speed. After chopping the golem into several pieces, he asks what it thinks. Cheoldu keeps attacking and yells that this is a barbarian-style dissection. Just then, he gains a skill, but the golem's remains grab him by surprise. He wonders how he can kill this thing, since it's still regenerating. Cheoldu then notices something inside the monster as he's being engulfed by its remains. He sees a pulsating core in the middle of the flesh and reaches out to grab it. With a struggle, he says he just needs to reach a little further to get it. Finally, his hand manages to grasp the core that was inside the giant creature. Without hesitation, Cheoldu uses all his strength to completely crush the red core. In that same instant, the flesh that held him explodes and disintegrates in the air. He tells the corpse to stay dead and never come back to life again. Then, the fragments of the destroyed core begin to float in the air right in front of him. The pieces come together and form a golem skill orb in his hand. Cheoldu smiles and says this will be very useful to him. Cheoldu climbs the castle stairs, continuing on his way to the main hall. He then clears his throat, preparing to get the attention of his real target. Next, he shouts for the Count to show himself, announcing that Cheoldu Kang has come to see him. The large door at the end of the hall remains closed, hiding the enemy inside. The door finally opens, and an imposing figure in a blue cape begins to walk forward. Cheoldu grins and says he's finally found him, preparing for combat. The master of the castle, the half-lich Count Ryan, reveals himself completely before him. He grips his weapon tightly and starts to question what the enemy really is. Cheoldu then asks if he's half spicy and half crispy like fried chicken, but Count Ryan just stares at him in silence, not responding to his taunt. He realizes his opponent is the silent type and says that's fine by him. Then, he says it doesn't matter what the count is and prepares to jump. Cheoldu propels his body forward and leaps with all his might toward his stationary opponent. He yells in midair that he's here to end this fight once and for all. Cheoldu strikes with all his might, but Count Ryan blocks his dual-wielded attack with his sword. The Count manages to withstand the impact of Cheoldu's attack with no apparent difficulty. Suddenly, the Count unleashes a massive fire explosion that throws Cheoldu back. Cheoldu grows frustrated as he struggles against the force of the flames completely surrounding him. He then says that this guy isn't crunchy, but much spicier. The two begin an intense exchange of blows, their weapons clashing repeatedly. Cheoldu complains that his skin feels like it's burning from the intense heat of the fight. He realizes that being near him makes it hard to breathe, as these are no ordinary flames. Cheoldu then notices another important detail about his opponent during their close-quarters combat. He's surprised by the Count's high skill level as he gets hit, but just then, the golem core he equipped begins to glow on his chest. The golem core's ability activates, releasing energy into his body. His wounds heal, and he yells at the Count to cut him as much as he wants. Cheoldu charges forward, screaming that he has become an invincible barbarian and lunges into an attack. Meanwhile, outside, the captain's men continue to fight against the skeletons. Jintai Kim shouts for everyone to keep fighting and not stop attacking the enemies. The men bravely hold their ground against the hordes of undead at the castle entrance. Major Yunyung and the Dullahan face each other, both panting from the fight. She then says they can't hold out much longer in this situation. The Major concludes that the captain is their only hope now. Cheoldu knows everyone is waiting for him and focuses on the fight. He needs to finish off this bastard as quickly as possible to help his men. Then the Count attacks him and shatters his smaller weapon with a single blow. Cheoldu is left with only his larger weapon in his hands to defend against the attacks. He complains that he could barely keep up with the attacks using both weapons at once. The Count advances with a series of blows, putting more and more pressure on Cheoldu. He takes a powerful hit, getting thrown back and planting his axe in the ground to stop himself. Cheoldu wonders how the enemy can move like that, cutting off his escape routes. Count Ryan leaps, preparing to end the fight with a strike from above, but Cheoldu notices something in his opponent's movement, surprised by what he sees. At the last second, Cheoldu manages to narrowly dodge the Count's attack. He finally understands his opponent's technique, saying he gets how it works now. Cheoldu realizes he uses his footwork to build momentum for the next attack. Then, he uses his newfound knowledge to block the Count's attack perfectly. Count Ryan is surprised to see his attack completely stopped by him. Cheoldu shouts for some space and says he needs to learn the enemy's technique right now. He keeps blocking and declares that he needs to acquire the technique by surpassing his opponent. Suddenly, his axe mastery levels up, putting him on the same level. Cheoldu claims he can now predict exactly where the Count's attacks will land. He stops the next attack with his bare hand, grabbing the hot blade without any trouble. He smiles and tells the Count that, just as he said before, he's invincible. The Count is shocked to see that Cheoldu managed to catch his sword with his bare hands. Then, he takes the chance and slashes the enemy with a powerful blow to the stomach. Cheoldu says thanks and that he learned a lot from the half-spicy, half-crunchy guy. He raises his weapon for the final blow, bidding farewell to Count Ryan in the hall. The Count's body turns to dust, and he receives the completion notice. Cheoldu says the fight took too long, lamenting that his main weapon broke, but he receives a longsword, celebrating that it's an unexpected upgrade. Then, another bonus reward appears, revealed to be a special pendant from a goddess. He realizes the item can heal wounds, and says he'll be able to heal the others. Outside, a pillar of light erupts in the courtyard, catching everyone's attention. The Major and Jintei run towards him, worriedly shouting the captain's name. They ask if he's okay, but Cheoldu just says he'll explain later. He asks one of the men for a status report, who reports 7 seriously injured. Cheoldu then announces he will heal them, leaving his officer completely confused. He raises the pendant, asking the goddess to heal his men with her power. The men are amazed as they watch their wounds heal, with one of them confirming it's real. Jintei asks if they don't need to worry anymore, but Cheoldu explains the remaining charges. Jintei says it's a relief, while the other two remain silent. Then, the officer apologizes and informs him that they've lost 3 of their men. The bodies of the 3 men who died in the battle are placed in wooden caskets. Then, they hold a funeral, watching the caskets burn in a large pyre. Cheoldu says the pendant is useless if they're already dead, regretting he wasn't faster, but he changes his mind, stating that's not how he should see the 3 of them. He yells that they died for a noble cause, securing a new fortress for everyone. Then, Cheoldu asks if his men know what they must do to honor their comrades. He declares that they will turn this place into a safe and impenetrable fortress. Cheoldu uses the Lord's Seal, officially declaring the location as Ironhead territory. He then names the new place, calling it Ironhead Castle from now on. The scene shifts to outside the castle, where he appears next to a lord. The lord thanks him, saying they can now build a road to it. He asks what it's like to be the lord of a territory, and Cheoldu replies it's not bad. Cheoldu says he's considering bringing his men's families over, as Earth isn't safe. The lord agrees with his idea, and stays silent for a moment. Then he reveals he has a secret, and asks if Cheoldu can keep it to himself. The lord explains they traded information about portals for the reason behind the end of the world. He then asks Cheoldu not to be alarmed by what he is about to reveal. The lord reveals that the reason is the apocalyptic zombie virus. Cheoldu asks if that's true, and the man confirms he's heard reports. He suggests moving the people, but the man explains he can't force them. The man concludes that no one will move until the end of the world actually arrives. He recalls that even with the knowledge about Nova, many people hesitated to move. Cheoldu suggests telling them about the virus, but the man shouts that it would cause panic. He says there are no resources, and Cheoldu understands they need to prepare first. Then, he asks what the military will do to prepare for the evacuation. The man reveals the plan to build walls and shelters around the 5 portals. He adds that in Nova, the focus will be on security to increase the population. The man then says that's why he'd like to ask for a favor. He turns and asks Cheoldu to open the other portals in Korea. Cheoldu understands that he's being asked to defeat the field bosses of Nova. The man confirms, saying that the others are trying, but it will take too long. He starts to say it would be faster, but Cheoldu interrupts and refuses. Surprised, the man questions him, but Cheoldu states he will only fight for his tribe. The man expresses his regret, but Cheoldu says he doesn't fight for humanity, only for his tribe. He explains it would be arrogant to fight for others when he can't protect his own family. The image of the funeral for his men who died in battle reinforces his conviction. The scene shifts to Earth, where an alert warns of goblin attacks from the portals. Cheoldu's grandfather walks down the street as the government urges people to stay home. He worries about Cheoldu, hoping he's eating well since he disappeared. From a nearby rooftop, a goblin starts running, preparing for a swift attack. The creature leaps directly towards the grandfather, who turns, startled by the danger. He falls to the ground, wondering what that thing was that attacked him. The goblin advances on the fallen grandfather, preparing to finish its attack. But someone leaps from the ground with great speed to intercept the monster in midair. A woman lands a clean hit on the goblin's face, saving the grandfather from danger. She and a man rush to his side, and she asks if the old man is okay. The young woman extends a hand to help, but the grandfather avoids eye contact. He refuses her help, telling her not to bother, as he doesn't need anything. The young man approaches and brusquely tries to offer Cheoldu's grandfather something. He shows a coin and explains that the grandfather needs them to travel to Nova, but the grandfather refuses the offer, saying they can keep all the coins. The woman then questions why he's being so unfair and hates them so much. He yells that he's afraid they'll be a bad influence on his grandson, Cheoldu. The pair fall silent, just watching the grandfather walk away. Suddenly, a shadow appears, and a voice tells them not to be downcast. It was Cheoldu, who shows up and tells them they didn't do anything wrong. He shouts for his grandfather, who turns in surprise upon recognizing his voice. Cheoldu holds up a bottle and invites his grandfather for a drink of soju. The scene shifts to a house where the two are sitting at a table together. Cheoldu pours a drink and comments that he heard his grandfather has been praying a lot. The grandfather replies it's all because of him, as he's sleepless with worry. He asks why Cheoldu came, and Cheoldu suggests his grandfather should move. Cheoldu insists that Earth is dangerous, as the zombie virus will take over everything. Cheoldu says that without them, his grandfather would have been in trouble, but he dismisses the lecture. The grandfather then slams his glass on the table and tells him to stop talking about them. At this, Cheoldu asks why he hates them so much, and the grandfather just sighs. He explains that you can't trust gangsters, beginning to recall his past. The scene changes, with him admitting it's shameful, but he was once part of a gang. He says he did well, and the boss even made him president of a construction company. But the grandfather reveals he was used as a scapegoat when problems arose. The boss gave him the company just so he could pin all the blame on him. He says he got out of jail alone and thought about giving up on everything right there. It was in that moment of despair that he met the young Aiden for the first time. Back in the present, Cheoldu insists he thank the young people, but his grandfather refuses. Cheoldu then asks if he ever thought about getting revenge on those who put him away. The grandfather dismisses the idea, questioning how he could possibly get revenge on those people. Cheoldu explains that the boss who betrayed him later founded the famous CK Group. The scene then shows the CK Group headquarters in Daejeon at night. The chairman of the CK Group, Dongchun Kim, thanks a special guest for visiting. The guest, Dusik Choi, commends the host's recent efforts in Nova. Dusik Choi asks why he was invited, and the host bows respectfully. Dongchun offers some of his men, but Dusik asks the reason for the offer. He explains that hunting is more valued in Nova, and his men are useless there. Dusik Choi then smiles and asks him to say what he really wants in return. Dongchun reveals his plan to open the Gangneung portal and hunt the field boss. Dusik Choi questions him, but Dongchun assures him that his men can handle the job. Suddenly, the door bursts open and a man runs in, warning of trouble. He reports that some thugs have broken in and are causing a huge commotion. Dusik Choi says he's lost his appetite, and Dongchun apologizes for the interruption. Dusik says he's disappointed and that they can talk another time, then leaves. The employee reports that Chairman Choi has left, making Dongchun Kim even more furious. He yells at his employee, ordering the general manager to handle the problem immediately. Out in the hallway, several of the company's security guards were already down and defeated. The woman asks if they did well, but Cheoldu replies they need to keep training. Suddenly, General Manager Jang appears in the hallway, blocking the trio's path. Cheoldu eats a piece of bread and asks if the man in front of him is the leader. He then challenges the manager, telling him to come at him if he isn't. Cheoldu takes another bite and warns that he needs to get back before his bread gets cold. Cheoldu hands the bag of bread to the woman, asking her to hold it for a moment. He cracks his knuckles and says he'll take care of that guy, getting ready to fight. Manager Jang then draws 2 daggers, revealing his weapons for the confrontation. Cheoldu questions him, asking if he's trying to get arrested for violent behavior. Dongchun Kim appears and yells at Cheoldu, pointing to the men he defeated. Manager Jang says he doesn't know why he's there, but he won't let him escape. Then he leaps to attack, yelling that he's going to teach the devilish bastard a lesson. Cheoldu dodges the blows and says he's much more merciful on Earth. He keeps dodging and shouts that at least he doesn't kill anyone here. Cheoldu manages to block one of the attacks, but Manager Jang breaks his arm. The manager backs away, while Cheoldu is thrown back by the force of the blow. He says he'll use his hands as blades, preparing to continue the fight. But the manager says Cheoldu broke one of his ribs with the block. He then decides to use his ultimate skill, the pandemonium technique, to win. The manager explains that the strikes distract the opponent, creating an opening to attack. A large snake appears behind Cheoldu, preparing for the final attack, but he simply shatters the illusion of the manager's technique with a single blow. Manager Jiang is confused, not understanding how his ultimate skill was broken. Cheoldu heals himself, and the manager wonders what technique he used to defend himself. He then says he didn't use any technique, he just swung his arm hard. Cheoldu lands a powerful blow to Manager Jiang's chest, breaking his defense. The manager is thrown hard against the wall, which shatters on impact. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Jin-tae Kim explores the area, analyzing the structure. He notes down in his notebook the buildings that exist within the castle walls. Jin-tae then tries to open a door, but finds it locked with chains. He turns around upon hearing a strange noise coming from inside one of the rooms. Major Yun-young was sitting at a table, stretching after being still for a while. She greets him and asks what he's doing there, startling him. Then, the major suggests that perhaps they should call him the Lord Chamberlain here. The scene changes, showing Cheoldu appointing Jin-tae as the Lord Chamberlain of Ironhead Castle. Jin-tae Kim is officially appointed to the position of Lord Chamberlain of the new castle. Cheoldu tasks him with developing the village, trusting his experience with games. He then appoints Junhwan Oh as captain of the forces in the newly conquered territory. Yoon-young Lee is chosen to be his personal guard, receiving the most dangerous assignment. Jun Seop and Young-soo will continue to lead the guerrilla unit, keeping their old roles. Cheoldu then declares with determination that they will turn the castle into an impenetrable fortress. He shouts that it will be a fortress just for them, one that no one can conquer. Back at the castle, Jin-tae says the captain went to Earth without warning. The major comments that Cheoldu may seem strong, but sometimes he's a softie. She hopes he isn't drinking, when an explosion throws someone into the room. Dongchun Kim shouts Jang's name upon seeing him fall defeated to the floor. He wonders who could have defeated his manager, when someone enters the room. Dongchun turns around angrily and yells, asking who the intruder in his office is. Cheoldu introduces himself as young Cheo Kang's grandson, asking if he knows him. Dongchun Kim then says he has only known one Yang Cheo Kang in his life. Dongchun wonders if his old colleague trained this monster to get revenge on him. He then breaks into a smile and starts laughing loudly, pretending to be happy, saying it's wonderful that Cheoldu is his old friend's grandson. Cheoldu questions the claim, but Dongchun pours a drink and briefly justifies himself. He then discreetly puts a pill in the glass he prepared for his guest. Offering the drink, he suggests they discuss the matter more calmly. Cheoldu clears his throat and says that in that case, he'll hear what he has to say. The two sit down, and Dongchun says that Cheoldu is practically family to him, pushes the glass forward, insisting that Cheoldu drink, who accepts his offer. Cheoldu downs the glass in one go, while Dongchun smiles, thinking about the poison. Dongchun asks how the drink was, and calls him an idiot for accepting. Cheoldu starts to choke, as if feeling the poison's effect on his body. Dongchun pulls out a gun, points it at him, and yells that he's won once again. He then pulls the trigger, firing 3 shots at point-blank range at Cheoldu. He looks at the smoking gun, but turns when he hears his men calling him. One of his cronies asks why Dongchun isn't reacting to the man's death. Dongchun is surprised to see Cheoldu get up, praising the taste of the drink. Then Cheoldu hits him with the bottle and yells for him to pour another round. He falls to the floor from the force of the blow, completely stunned by the situation. He screams, asking why Cheoldu isn't dead after everything that happened. Cheoldu says he thought he had his reasons, but he's just trash. Dongchun tries to shoot, but Cheoldu yells at him to stay back and get away. He asks if those are his last words before crushing the gun with his hand. Begging for his life, he kneels and promises to do anything for him. Cheoldu then tells him to go apologize to his grandfather, who is upset. He adds an order for him to hand over all his shares to the Ironhead Corporation. Realizing who he is, one of the men asks if he was the one who defeated the boss. Cheoldu confirms, just before a huge explosion occurs at the top of the company building. Far away, Cheoldu's grandfather prays for him, asking for his grandson's protection. He turns at the sound of a voice and sees Cheoldu at the door, saying he's home. The grandfather starts to scold him, but stops when he sees Cheoldu throw a man to the floor. Then Dongchun Kim begs for his life, pleading for forgiveness so he won't be left to die. Cheoldu says he taught a lesson to the man who stole his grandfather's company. He then asks his grandfather if he doesn't feel better now with his revenge. Cheoldu doesn't understand the reason for his grandfather's silence at that moment. Suddenly, the grandfather slaps Cheoldu across the face with all his might. He's in shock from the action, unable to finish what he was saying. The grandfather then yells, saying he is very, very disappointed in his grandson. Youngcheol Kang scolds Cheoldu, telling him that using violence makes him just another thug. The scene shifts. A battered and panting Dongchun Kim is running down the street, but Cheoldu retorts that he refuses to forgive anyone who harms his family. He's ready to kill. His grandfather sighs, saying that every life is precious and that he will be punished for his actions. Cheoldu then turns around, saying the world has changed and he knows what he's doing. He sits and invites his grandfather to come with him to Nova, saying he's worried about him. He goes on, promising his grandfather will change his mind once they get there. His grandfather just listens in silence, arms crossed, thinking about his grandson's proposal. Youngcheol then asks about this place his grandson is so eager to take him to. The grandfather grits his teeth, apparently making a tough decision about the offer. He finally agrees to go to Nova, but he sets one condition first. Cheoldu is surprised by the condition his grandfather just laid out. His grandfather shouts that under no circumstances is he allowed to take a human life. The scene shifts. A voice congratulates Cheoldu on finally convincing his grandfather. Cheoldu explains he needs to get his grandfather's qualifications himself, turning down his companion's help. Cheoldu asks his man if what he requested for the project has been prepared. The subordinate then informs him that CK Construction is now part of their company. He reveals the name has been changed to IRH Holdings, just as the boss suggested. Cheoldu smiles as he is introduced as the new CEO of the newly formed company. The scene shifts to Paju, a government area with a warning sign about goblins. Cheoldu explains to his grandfather that he just needs to defeat goblins to get some coins, but his grandfather clasps his hands together, asking them to take care of him, even though he says he's strong. Youngcheol insists he's not invincible, but Cheoldu just tells everyone to get moving. 2 hours pass, and the grandfather sits on a rock, complaining about his joints. Cheoldu looks to the horizon, wondering why there are no goblins around. Suddenly, he spots something moving and shouts that there's something right there. He then grabs his grandfather's arm and pulls him along, telling him they need to hurry. Then, he stops suddenly, digging his heels into the ground. He points to a single goblin. His grandfather panics, asking how he's supposed to defeat that thing. Cheoldu hands him an axe, reminding him he used one back in his gangster days. Cheoldu warns that he'll only step in if things get dicey, since he could kill it with a single strike. Just then, a young man leaps out, shouting, "Here I go!" ready to attack the small monster. He lands a clean hit right on the goblin's head, and it drops to the ground instantly. His friend cheers, calling it a great shot as the creature is sent flying. The young man turns to a camera and thanks his viewers for their support after catching 5 goblins. He reads the comments and asks in confusion what they're talking about behind him. Suddenly, Cheoldu appears right behind him, staring at him with a very serious expression. He grabs the young man's staff. The kid, startled, asks what he wants with them. Cheoldu then asks why they're taking away other people's chance to get to Nova, but his grandfather holds him back as Cheoldu insists they need to be taught a lesson. Youngcheol yells that he warned him about using violence and threatens to call off the trip. He calls out to the 2 young men, telling Cheoldu to stay put and think about what he's done. The grandfather then starts to lead the 2 young men away, disappearing into the forest. With a grim expression, the grandfather continues walking, leading the 2 far away. He keeps moving away with the youths, leaving Cheoldu behind on the dark path. The young men notice their viewership is up, and one suggests stealing the axe. A short distance away, Youngcheol turns and apologizes to the 2, admitting that was scary. But as he's talking, one of them pulls a knife and holds it close to his face. They threaten him, telling him he'll be their hostage to get his grandson's axe. Youngcheol tells them to put their weapons down, but they threaten Cheoldu Kang's safety instead. He then grabs a hatchet, saying they can mess with him but not with Cheoldu. Then he attacks the 2 young men, yelling at them not to lay a hand on his grandson. Meanwhile, Cheoldu is crouched in the forest, wondering if he's the problem. He gets annoyed by the delay, thinking his grandfather wouldn't just leave him there alone. Suddenly, he hears a distant scream and leaps to his feet, completely startled. Cheoldu spots the two young men running as his grandfather yells at them to run for their lives. He runs to the spot and finds his grandfather on the ground, seriously injured and coughing. Cheoldu then takes out an amulet and shouts, calling on a goddess to heal his grandfather. A green light then envelops his grandfather's body, healing all his injuries. The process ends, and a relieved Cheoldu asks his grandfather if he's feeling okay now. Young Cheol apologizes, admitting he argued with Cheoldu when the other two were the real problem. Cheoldu reassures him, saying it's all right as long as he's safe now. He helps his grandfather up, telling him they're going after the guys who ran off. Meanwhile, the two fugitives stop to rest, unaware of what's coming for them. One of them complains about the old man, saying he almost lost his hand in the earlier attack. Suddenly, a hand shoots out and grabs him. Cheoldu asks, "What was that you said?" Cheoldu then lifts the young man off the ground, who is completely stunned by his appearance. The other one, startled, asks when he got there as Cheoldu advances on him. Then, Cheoldu attacks them both at once, forcefully throwing one to each side. Young Cheol watches the staff fall. His grandson states that the world isn't a peaceful place anymore. Holding them both, Cheoldu says he only attacks those who dare to threaten his family. He then turns and loudly declares that he is a true warrior. The scene shifts. Captain Choi and Sergeant Kai realize something is wrong. Jin-tae Kim appears, rubbing his eyes and asking what's going on. He looks at the sky and comments on the blood moon, thinking it's an eclipse. But Major Lee shouts that this is no ordinary lunar eclipse. She warns them it's a catastrophe as monsters begin to appear under the red moon. A system message then announces the eclipse event, which enrages all monsters. A pillar of light descends from the sky, transporting the two to a new, unknown place. Cheoldu then introduces the place to his grandfather, saying that this is the land of Nova, but his grandfather asks what's wrong with the sky in the place. Cheoldu is also confused, while his grandfather is startled to see his clothes disappearing. Just then, Second Lieutenant Seung-a Choi runs towards them, shouting Cheoldu's name. He asks who she is, but the lieutenant gets annoyed that he doesn't recognize her. She explains that the military controls the portals, and knew as soon as he arrived. The lieutenant warns him it's an emergency, as General Junpil Park wants to see him. The scene shifts to the Hanyang government office, where the general awaits them. Inside, General Park greets young Chol Kang, who introduces himself as Cheoldu's grandfather. But the general insists on personally welcoming the grandfather of his dear friend. A status window then appears, showing young Chol Kang's basic information to everyone. Young Chol asks if the general is his grandson's friend, and he confirms they are very close. Cheoldu interrupts the conversation and asks them to explain what's happening outside. The general reveals that the eclipse event has begun, and furious monsters will soon attack humans. The general explains that the monsters get 50% stronger, but the rewards also increase. He says Hanyang has time to defend itself, but Ironhead Castle does not. The fortress is on the front line, so it will be attacked before anyone else. The general confirms the castle will be flooded with monsters, and they are short on mercenaries for defense. Cheoldu and his grandfather listen to the explanation with very serious expressions. Junpil Park then asks him to hurry back, promising to send soldiers as reinforcements. The scene changes, and a voice announces that the mercenary leader is finally back. Cheoldu walks across the courtyard towards the people eagerly waiting for him. Just then, Jin-tae Kim sees him arriving and reacts with surprise to his sudden appearance. Cheoldu arrives with his grandfather, who greets the young Jin-tae with a brief nod. Jin-tae is happy about his arrival, and the grandfather replies that he feels great. Cheoldu then jokes that his grandfather is a much better fighter than Jin-tae. Suddenly, Captain An steps forward and asks for everyone's attention. He announces loudly that Mr. Cheoldu Kang has returned safely to the castle, and all the soldiers shout together, hailing the return of their great and awaited leader. Young Cheol Kang stands completely still, watching the soldiers salute to his grandson. Jin-tae explains that this shows how much Cheoldu has achieved, asking if he isn't amazing. The grandfather smiles, wondering if his grandson really did all of that on his own here. Cheoldu then turns and says they didn't need to salute him before a great battle. He yells that the feeling is great, getting ready for the coming fight. Raising his axe, he orders everyone to prepare to leave for the fight immediately. The scene changes, and Cheoldu asks if Yoon-young and the guerrilla unit have already left. Captain Choi confirms, explaining that monsters are attacking from 3 sides, like gnolls and orcs. Cheoldu says they've fought them before and can defend the castle just fine, but Choi warns him that the real problem is the horde of minotaurs coming from the hills. Hearing about the minotaurs, he asks if they are those giant bull-like creatures. He then slams the table, asking if the unit went to face new monsters without him. He then accuses the young ones of wanting the rewards for themselves, but Choi denies it. Cheoldu stands up, saying he needs to join them before it's too late. He turns at the door, asking everyone to defend the castle well in his absence. The guerrilla unit fights bravely against a large horde of minotaurs in the dark forest. 2 knights from the unit try to surround one of the monsters, attacking it at the same time. A minotaur raises its weapon, ready to crush the soldiers in front of it. Major Lee charges forward on her horse and blocks the giant creature's attack. She grinds her teeth, continuing to press the monster with her sword during combat. One of the knights moves away to attack another creature, charging with his spear in hand. But the soldier is knocked off his horse, falling hard to the ground during the battle. Just then, Captain Choi manages to hit the creature, cutting its body with a precise strike. The monster falls to the ground, and the captain runs to help Sergeant Yong-soo Ki. He helps him up, saying they need to hold the line to protect the castle. Major Yoon-young Lee turns sharply, observing the critical situation of her men. She sees that all the minotaurs are advancing towards the 2 cornered soldiers, so she jumps off her horse, deciding she needs to do something to help in the fight. She takes a combat stance, preparing to use one of her powerful abilities. Major Lee yells for the 2 to get down, and they immediately crouch. Major Yoon-young Lee charges forward and attacks several minotaurs at once with her sword. She finishes her attack, protecting the 2 soldiers who were right behind her in the battle. One of the soldiers gets excited, saying she's amazing and deserves a noble title. But right after, she shows signs of intense pain from the blow. Then the soldier notices blood dripping and worriedly asks if she's okay or hurt. She reveals she was hit by one of the monsters during the attack she just made. The major falls to the ground, explaining that one of them hit her with its axe. Suddenly, the 2 soldiers feel the ground shake and look back, terrified. A new horde of furious minotaurs charges towards them, ready for the final attack. She gets up and tells them to deal with the arm, but the soldier tells her to retreat. But the major refuses to fall back, insisting she's fine and doesn't need to. She then orders them out of the way as a horse approaches quickly from behind. Just then, Cheol-du Kong arrives on horseback, and a voice announces the arrival of the long-awaited leader. He raises an amulet and shouts a goddess's name to use the item. Cheol-du then yells, ordering the amulet's power to put her arm back on.